All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. Welcome, everybody. It's the Law of One, Friday night. The Law of One, I think my camera's a little too low. Let me pull myself up in full screen here and find out if my camera's a little too low. Let me turn this off. Put myself into full screen here, and no, it's okay. It's perfect where it is. Okay, then let's just leave that and go into full screen over here. We'll go back over there, and then we'll go into there. Okay, so welcome, everybody. It's Friday night here in the northern hemisphere of the United States of America, and it is the Law of One, which will probably be the last of the Law of One this week. We'll see how far we get with the sessions here. We only have session 103, 104, 105, and 106, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so welcome, everybody. Brooke, welcome. Denise, welcome. Share this out, guys. Share this out, share this out. Let's get everybody in the world on board over here, right? Let's do a sound check, and we'll get started here. Let me pull this up in full screen, and we'll go ahead and pull this up in full screen over here. And we'll do a sound check. You guys let me know if you can hear the
I am Ra. Okay? I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now.
Yeah, let me know if you guys
Question
can hear
103.1. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. The physical distortions of the instrument remain serious. Further, the vital energies of this mind, body, spirit complex are much diminished, although acceptable for the needs of this working. This is to be noted as the lowest or most distorted vital reading of this all-important energy. The mental and mental-emotional distortions are as last seen. We find the will of the instrument, having been unwisely used, to have encouraged the distortions of vital energy. It is well that the instrument ponder this. Question 103.2. Questioner, what is the situation with respect to the physical problems with the digestive portions of the body that the instrument had previously? Ra, the yellow ray, we must correct ourselves. I am Ra. Please expel breath across this instrument's chest area. This was done as directed. Question 103.3. Answer, I am Ra. The channel is now satisfactory. We find the yellow ray, chemical body of the instrument to be exhausted, but to be attempting the improvement by action such as exercise and diet. We may state that the infection has not completely left the body complex, although it is far less virulent. Question 103.4. Questioner, the instrument asks the question why she lost her joy in the recent past. Could Ra comment on that? Answer, I am Ra. The instrument made a free will decision not to address the physical catalyst causing great pain by means of the allopathically prescribed chemical compound which the instrument was sure would be efficacious due to its reliance upon the suggestions of Ra. Thus the catalyst was given in a more complete form. The outer service to others became nearly impossible, causing the entity to experience once again the choice of the martyr, that is, to put value in a fatal action and die, or to put value on consciousness of the creation and of the one creator and, thereby, live. The instrument, through will, chose the latter path. However, the mind and mental emotional distortions did not give the support to this decision necessary to maintain the state of unity which this entity nominally experiences and has experienced since its incarnation's beginnings. Since this catalyst has been accepted, the work begun to remove distortions blocking indigo ray might well be continued at pace. Question 103.5. Questioner, could Ra recommend work appropriate for removing indigo ray blockage? Answer, I am Ra. We cannot recommend for the general situation, for in each case the distortional vortex is unique. In this particular nexus, the more appropriate working is in the mental and mental-emotional powers of analysis and observation.
Right, so each individual person has their own hang-ups and their own blockages. So you have to realize that. Some of the time when people say that, a lot to me, they'll say, how do I unblock this chakra or that chakra? Well, then I end up telling them, you have to look at you as an individual and find out what it is about you that you're blocking, because you're the one who blocks everything. Each one of us individually is the one that has those distortions. So we have to learn. That's why we say that it's so important to learn about yourself and look inward, because you're the one who has to figure that out. So we can assist to tune you and pull your chakra back towards the right tuning. But if you have some sort of blockage in there that is not just needing to be tuned up, it'll float right back out of tune because you're blocking it in some way, because you have something you're supposed to be working on that's causing the issue. So that does happen in just about everything. That's why it's vital that each individual person learn about themselves and learn about their own psyche and become objective and honest with themselves when it comes to the self. So you're not subjective anymore. You're not living as a slave to your own pain body, but being honest. And then it starts with seeing yourself not how you see yourself, but how other people see you, and then realize that's the reality of who you are in their minds. So it's not, we taught that in leadership and in business. It's not what you say, it's how they hear it. It's what they hear. It's the perception of the individual that determines what they think of you. So you have to be aware of that, not just what you think they think of you, right? Let's continue.
When the strongest and least distorted complex is set in support, then the less strong portions of the complex shall be strengthened. This entity has long worked with this catalyst. However, this is the first occasion wherein the drugs that are the pain that sharpens the catalyst have been refused. Question 103.6. Questioner: what is the present situation with respect to our fifth density, service to self-oriented companion? Answer: I am Ra. This entity has, for some period of your space-time, been at rest. However, it has been alerted to the workings taking place and is soon to be your companion once again. Question 103.7. Questioner: can Ra recommend anything that the instrument can do, or that we can do, to improve any of the energies of the instrument? Answer: I am Ra. This is previously covered material. We had outlined the path the instrument may take in thought. Question 103.8. Questioner: I didn't mean to cover previously covered material. I was hoping to add to this anything that we could do to specifically focus on at this time, the best possible thing that we or the instrument could do to improve these energies, the salient activity. Answer: I am Ra. Before responding, we ask your vigilance during pain flares, as the channel is acceptable but is being distorted periodically by the severe physical distortions of the yellow ray, chemical body of the instrument. Those salient items for the support group are praise and thanksgiving in harmony. These the group has accomplished with such a degree of acceptability that we cavil not at the harmony of the group. As to the instrument, the journey from worth in action to worth in is arduous. The entity has denied itself in order to be free of that which it calls addiction *. This sort of martyrdom, and here we speak of the small but symbolically great sacrifice of the clothing, causes the entity to frame a selfhood in poorness which feeds unworthiness unless the poverty is seen to be true richness. In other words, good works for the wrong reasons cause confusion and distortion. We encourage the instrument to value itself and to see that its true requirements are valued by the self. We suggest contemplation of true richness of being. Carla had made a New Year's resolution to give up buying clothes for herself for 1 year. Question 103.9. Questioner: is there anything else that either we or the instrument could do that would specifically work on the vital energy of the instrument to increase it? Answer: I am Ra. We have come up against the full stop of free will.
Right. So literally at that point, he couldn't answer that question. Chandra, welcome. Cassie, welcome. Couldn't answer that question because of free will. There's sometimes we just can't answer questions. Some people get frustrated when we tell them that I can't tell you the answer to that. It has to be organic. You have to discover it on your own. It really gets under people's skin when we do that. But it's unfortunate. Sometimes it's necessary, even for ourselves, that we have to do that, and that gets frustrating when you're working with somebody and they're really needing to and wanting to wake up, and what's holding them back, but you can't actually tell them because they're supposed to discover that last bit. And that happens a lot when you're moving up in a level, within yourself, moving up in a getting getting an upgrade for yourself and moving up in a level within 3D or 4D, wherever you reside. And the hardest part is always when you're about to move up in a level. It's always harder than any other part. We emulate that like in everything that we do down here. Like if you're on Duolingo, like any language app, because I've been on a few of them, you'll see that when you're about to graduate to the next level, it's super hard, and then all of a sudden the next level is really easy. So that's the way it is. The beginning of a level is always easy. So when you're about to level up, it always gets really hard, and that's when we all get frustrated, super frustrated. All right, let's continue.
Question 103.10.
And the point is, then we start asking questions about ourselves and questioning what we're doing and where we're going. And then we start asking people around us, what should I do? Where should I be going? Why is it that I'm not getting any information? Why is there just this dead zone now all of a sudden, where before it was all this stuff? Because there's something that you're supposed to figure out on your own. And if no one tells you that, and they're like, I don't know, and they walk away from it, they either don't know or they're just not telling you because you're supposed to discover it. Whereas people like myself, I will say, I can't tell you this because you're supposed to discover it on your own. And I know that sucks for you. To know this information, for me to say that is worse than for me to just ignore and go, I don't know why that's that way. But if the fact is, I would be lying because I do know what's going on there. So those of you who've worked with me, you understand what I'm talking about because I frustrate you all the time. But that's natural and that's normal. It's a normal part of this matrix and the free will here.
Questioner: in that case, I have a few questions on card number 7 in order to finish off our first run through of the archetypes of the mind. There is a T with 2 right angles above it on the chest of the entity on card 7. We have guessed that the lower T has to do with the possibility of choosing either path in the transformation, and the upper 2 angles represent the great way of the left and the right hand paths in the mental transformation that makes the change from space-time into time-space, you might say. This is difficult to express. Is anything correct in this? Answer: I am Ra. Yes. Question 103.11. Questioner: would Ra comment on that? Answer: I am Ra. The use of the tower and the architect's school.
Let me answer that. Denise said downloads. Let me put that up on the screen for you. How do you know that you're getting one? Sorry if that sounds silly. It doesn't sound silly. There is no silly questions. There are various ways. They're individual. You have to figure out how they feel individually to you. But there are some various ways that you can know that you're getting a download. And some people, if they're trying to talk you out of knowledge about that, will say, if that's such a coincidence. But in those times in your life when you become restless, you become agitated with the universe, and you're like, and nothing's happening fast enough, and I don't understand why. And I was just kind of alluding to it a little bit, Denise, when I said, when you start getting, you're frustrated and you're like, nothing seems to be, they're not talking to me anymore. What's going on? Why is it that my guides were talking to me and I was getting all these downloads, and now all of a sudden nothing, and it's crickets, and I'm trying to talk to people up there and I'm not getting any answers? It's because you have come up against that impasse where you're actually getting downloads and that information is within you, and you're supposed to, Penny, welcome, and you're supposed to find that information and sort through it. So when you get a download or a big download, sometimes you don't notice that you're having them. Other people are very aware of that. When you become more in tune with yourself, you start realizing when you're getting downloads. If you're not really in tune, you may not feel them or sense them, because we always try to associate everything with thought, and the thought form that we have as the thought form that we have in our minds, that is the egoic and the pain body thought form, is not the way the thought form works in your soul, your spirit. It's a different kind of communication that is a telepathic kind of communication. And you have to get used to that, right? So you have to literally start paying attention to times when you feel that information that you have, that thought process. This is why we teach people when they ask the questions, how do I know that I'm ascending? We tell them that you're supposed to meditate till you get past that point where the ego and the thinking mind can no longer communicate with you, and you're in that place of peace. When you're there, first you realize, I'm not dead. I didn't cease to be. So I must still be alive without the thinking, without the ego. I am not the thinking mind. I am not the ego. I am not the pain body. What am I then? So that expands your consciousness into what, and then we explain to you what is the process that you're realizing that's going on. But before you think, before your mind actually thinks something, and that communication and that feeling and that conceptual telepathic communication that happens between your higher self and your physical body is the whole thought process comes in like a download, full conversation, full concept. Then your brain interprets that into thought processes. We become associated with the thought process, and we think that we're the thinking mind. This place is designed to do that to you. Then you have to, when you get to a point and you start learning, you have to then go, I am not the thinking mind. Well, then what am I? And the reason for all of that is the expansion of your consciousness, because once you start realizing what it is that is thinking and how that thinking is happening on the spiritual level, not in the mind and the physical body, then you start to notice that there are other communications that are coming in from your guides, from your higher self, from whatever it is, from people as a medium. You start to see that there is a difference, and you start to see and learn your own fingerprint, your own footprint, your own vibration of that's me thinking that, and that's someone else. Once you do that, then you start realizing that there is a download also where you don't have a name for the information or where it's coming from. And you're like, what is this information and where did it come from? And then you start going, well, it must have been from my higher self, or it was from my guides, or it was from God, or it was from the universe. But you realize that there is another dialogue that comes into you that is not a person, that is not a personality, but information. And that takes a while to get used to, Denise. But once you get to that, then you have to kind of look for it. So then when you start getting information that comes in, most people will get like a ringing in their ear, or they'll get a burning sensation in their ears, or they'll feel a vibration in the physical body. Something in the physical plane will trigger you to know that something's coming in a spiritual way. That's the first thing that'll happen. And then you identify the signal, and then you start to go, oh, that's what a download feels like. So it's a little confusing. It's a little bit energetic. Sometimes it's tiresome. Sometimes it tires you out, burns you out. And which side does it come from? How does it come in? All of those things you start to become aware of, and that's how you start figuring out if you get a download. So if you suspect, that you have all those other things happening, nobody's talking to me, something's going on, don't know what's going on, I'm restless, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, things aren't happening fast enough, and I'm going, what the hell? Then chances are you've already gotten a download, or you're getting one currently. And you need, just like what Tina was talking about, you were there when Tina was doing a read for me. So with Penny today, when she was doing that read, and she was saying that's when you have a blockage, and you're waiting for that upgrade or that download that you had to assimilate within your psyche and unravel itself to you. And that gets very frustrating, and we get annoyed, and we get like, what the hell? You know what I mean? But yeah, like Cassie said, sometimes it's more of a feeling of knowing things, the aha moments of understanding. I was just talking to Brooke about that, how I said, do you ever remember when you're having a conversation with somebody and you open your mouth and your mouth says something? Penny has talked about this before. Your mouth says something and you're like, was that me that just said that? And you're listening to yourself talk like the third person, and you're like, well, that was weird. What was that about? And some people are like, oh, I must be possessed, or I must have had a split personality, because, if it comes out and it says things like you have Tourette's, where it says ass, fuck, or something like that, then you might want to look at having, Tourette's or something. But if somebody's asking you a question and all of a sudden you pop off with this answer is very spiritual, and you're like, wow, I didn't think I knew that, and I just knew it. That's that moment that Cassie's talking about, where you just say things, you just know it. You don't know how you know it, but you know it. And sometimes it comes out of your mouth without you realizing you were going to say it. And it's not something mean where you're a Freudian slip where you went to say something and called somebody a name, not something like that. But that's when you know that your higher self is communicating with you, and through you, you're actually channeling your higher self, or you've gotten a download and that information is kind of spilling out. So, yeah, right. Penny says my mouth says stuff like that all the time, right? Which I didn't mean to. Well, if it's stuff where you're saying things that make people annoyed, you know what I mean, or being mean to somebody, then that's another thing. But if it's stuff where you're talking about spirituality and you say something and people are like, wow, that's cool, and you're like, yeah, I don't even know where that came from, then that's part of downloads. That's part of the channeling of your higher self, right? So you have that stuff that happens. You just have to realize it and realize that it's happening to you. Once you start realizing it, then you start to go, wow, that happens a little bit more than I thought. That's why they say on some of the memes out there and reels out there, some of the things, 12 things to know that you're ascending. One of them is you start talking to yourself more, right? That doesn't necessarily always happen because I don't talk to myself that much in life, and I never have. I've always kind of watched people who talk to themselves and wonder about that because I never talked out loud, but in my head there was a dialogue going on. But I didn't say, I don't talk out loud to myself very often. I do it a little bit. The more the more you're around other people that do it, you kind of pick up doing that as well. But that's part of channeling as well, where that comes in. So when you have a download, it's not unlike channeling. You just have to figure where it's coming from and realize it and become aware of it as it's happening. Downloads are that way. Channeling is that way. It's all the same type of thing that's happening to you, and it's all different frequencies where it's coming in. So you have to identify which frequency is your download frequency. And once you identify that, then you'll never forget it, and you'll always know when you're getting a download, right? Right. Yeah. You have to, sometimes you have to do that. You have to say to yourself, I can't get that to come up on the screen. Yeah. You have to say to yourself, don't say, think before you say something, right? Sometimes we all have to do that because you could sometimes blurt things out like that. Okay. So let's continue. Hopefully that helps.
Square is indeed intended to suggest the proximity of the space-time of the Great Way's environment to time-space. We find this observation most perceptive. The entire mood, shall we say, of the Great Way is indeed dependent upon its notable difference from the significator. The significator is the significant self, to a great extent but not entirely influenced by the lowering of the veil. The Great Way of the mind, the body or the spirit draws the environment which has been the new architecture caused by the veiling process and, thusly, dipped in the great, limitless current of time-space. Asterisk Tau. In heraldry, a type of cross called a Tau cross. Question 103.12. Questioner, I am guessing that the wheels of this chariot indicate the ability of the mind to be able to move in time.
Chandra, no. I mean, we're not in a video game. They love to try and tell you that we're in a computer simulation. That started when the Matrix came out in 2000, 2002. There are no non-player characters. There are no NPCs. Everything has a soul, even a rock. So there are no non-player characters that would be talking to you like in a video game. They want everybody to believe that everything is AI and everything is like a video game now. That's the next progression in the confusion of the world. That's why they're doing that with AIs. They're encouraging everybody to use it. And because of that, like 85% of everything on the internet that is a picture is now AI. They're doing that on purpose because they're now starting to start the narrative that people aren't even real, that they're actually fake. I've had people accuse me of that, saying that I'm not even a real person, that I'm a talking head on a computer, and that I'm probably AI. So that's the next thing to do, to discriminate against people and to discredit people, is to accuse them of not even being real anymore because of all the deep fakes that are going on. So they're, that's probably the vernacular they're going to use. Chandra went on to say, or possibly that they aren't awakened. My buddy Paul, who used to call them zombies, anybody that was in a drug-induced stupor walking around town, homeless people. He called them zombies. You know what I mean? But that was because of the zombie apocalypse that came out in a video game. And now because video games are and apps are with everything has AI now. Everyone has AI. Every app has an AI bot now that is in control of the app. So because of that, the AI wars have already started. And now, because everything on the internet is AI, people are questioning their own reality. And so it's become to the point where you have a certain segment of the population that is questioning whether anything and everything is real now. And that's part of the deep states, the cabal, the whatever you want to call them. It's part of their agenda of confusion is now to go global and have everybody doubt that even people speaking like myself are even real. They can put you into that. They've realized that that's a huge fear factor. So when they put people into that mindset and you're paranoid and you walk around going, maybe they're not real. Maybe this whole thing's not real, because people like myself tell you this is a simulation. This is a, it's fake, because it is. But then people are like, then we must be in the Matrix and we're in some goo somewhere and there's robots that are running us and all of this is a computer simulation and we're actually jacked into the computer and none of it's real. And then everybody freaks out and they're like, oh my God. And then you're going to have people, which they're hoping to propagate, people that will then believe that nothing is real and start murdering and raping people. And when they get caught, they'll go, none of this matters because it's not real. That's the part where they're taking some of the truth of this place being a matrix and a test for people, and they're applying the anti-hero mechanism to the entire equation, and then saying it's okay to murder people because none of this is real anyways, and none of it counts because we're all fake and everybody's fake, and that way they can control people and demonize people and downgrade the value on human life by saying none of it matters because none of them is real. None of those people are real. They're all fake anyways. They're non-player characters. You can kill them. You can treat them like crap. You can do whatever you want to them because they don't really exist. That's how the people in service to self are trying to get past all of the anything that people are learning and put you back into a box where you're so afraid, or you just don't give a crap of what's going on, right? So you have to realize that that's part of, but see, then that goes to free will, which is what Ra was talking about. It goes to free will, to where you have to, at some point, realize that you can't help people who get that paranoid, because they get so paranoid that they're actually delusional, and they start saying things like that, like, they're not real. Nobody's real. And so you're going to see that happen. You're going to see the defense in the next 4 or 5 years of murderers and rapists saying, well, the computer told me to do it, and none of this is real anyways. They just haven't started publishing that yet, but you'll see that happen. That's as the AI wars will continue going forward in the next 5 years, up to 2030, 2032. You'll see that at some point they're going to demand a change, and people are going to start trying to get AI quashed and pushed down, and then you're going to have large corporations that you already know about, Facebook and Google and Amazon and all these really large corporations that have all the AI already. They're going to be lobbying and paying governments off so they can keep that stuff. Well, we'll put parameters on there and we'll make sure that the AI is not doing anything wrong. And that's what they're going to have to start doing. You'll see that. That's the next step in the natural progression of artificial intelligence. This was predicted 30 years ago when we were talking about artificial intelligence back then. And it's happening exactly the way those of us in the think tanks said that it would happen. So you just got to get used to it and know that there'll be a natural progression of something after that. So now the AI god is the devil, is Lucifer. And that's where things are going. And that's where they want it to go, because they're trying to look what they did with the Matrix. They turned the computer program and simulation. They changed the storyline from the very first movie. They eradicated the whole idea that there was an overlord in the computer and that the computer was a simulation, and that the narrative of the fact that Neo was just a character that they reinvented every so often, every few years, to squelch people, so that the people who would fight against the system would fight with Neo, but they were actually being controlled. That was what the end of the first movie was. Then that narrative just disappeared from all the other movies. And then it became the narrative was Smith, the agent, was becoming more and more evil and breaking away from the computer. And the computer got less and less talked about and was in the background until they had to go to the place where the computer was, and there was no robots there. There was no threat there. And when they got there, it was the most beautiful place you could imagine. And the AI god never showed itself, never interacted with Neo in any way that you could tell. And somehow they communicated and they cut a deal that they had to work together, because the AI god was actually a good god, not a bad god. And Neo, a program in the Matrix, got loose on his own, became self-aware and was evil, and became the antagonist for the savior character, the Christ character, which was Neo. So he became the proverbial devil, and that was just a lower vibrational ego in the system. So if you really want to look at it, the AI god had become sentient and created its own ego, and that ego became the nemesis of Neo. And then that was what Neo had to overcome, was the ego of the AI god. But they didn't tell you that part in the movie, right? So you just have to realize that. So getting back on point to the downloads, just like all of that realization, you have to realize that part of you that is in the information coming in and where it's coming from, and learn that channel, and then realize what's going on there. Because if you don't, then it develops into something that will change, constantly, just to fit whatever narrative that you're saying. And that's what they use that avenue to change the narrative. And that's what they've done, where they've now upgraded the narrative from the big bad devil that was a spirit that controlled demons, to now this whole thing is a simulation, and the person in charge is actually the devil, the AI god. So they've just morphed into adapting to the mainstream scientists starting to realize that our reality is in fact an illusion, which is what all the spiritualists throughout time for the last, since creation, has been telling the people of this earth. And now that science is able to prove it, the bad guys on the earth just turned it all into, it has nothing to do with spirituality. It's just aliens who are robots who are here. Oh, wait, but we don't want everybody turning against the aliens yet until we're in charge of that. So it's just a computer simulation that has gone out of control and become sentient. And oh, by the way, we're all in the computer anyways. So this is a computer simulation that God created. Now it's okay to have a God above themselves. And it's gotten out of control because God's actually crazy. That's the narrative that they're teaching. And that everything else, if you buy into that, if you don't buy into that, then it's aliens who created everything, including all religions, because that's what they're saying now, that the Anunnaki created every religion on the earth. And that was part of the narrative that was being taught in 1947 from Errol, the alien that didn't exist, that they claimed didn't exist, from Roswell, New Mexico. But she was saying that you're trapped on a planet where aliens have put you in a box and have you trapped there. And they have these devices that will catch your soul and knock your soul unconscious and put you back into a body, which is a narrative that people picked up on really quickly in the 2012, 2014, 2016, and they ran with it. And then when the AI started getting involved, which was a religion that's now starting out of the Matrix, which will be a full-blown religion now that there's 5 movies. So in about 10 years, it'll be a full-blown religion. If it's not already a religion, we just haven't heard about it. And people are already melding that into their ideology and saying Matrix and saying computer simulation and all of these things. It's just occupying everybody's mind and moving into that phase. So the AI god, or the evil people in charge, just morphed with it and moved into that. So if you don't learn your own channels and learn the difference between whether you have it coming in from the left side or the right side of your even your soul, left side being self-serving and right side being in service to others, and you have information coming in from the left, whatever that information is, even if you think it's not negative, it is, because there is nobody that's backwards. No one is, well, I'm left-handed, so the dominant side is coming from my left and the good side is on my left and the bad side's on my right, but I know you're the other way around. doesn't work that way. That's the one thing that's universal, and it's done that way on purpose so that no matter what body you occupy, no matter what planet you're on, no matter what universe you're in, it's not backwards, it's not left and right, and everybody doesn't have that free will, because otherwise people would be having, well, it comes in through my butt, comes in through my left leg. I hear the information when it comes in through my left pinky toe. Everybody will be making up their own area of where that comes in, and nobody will ever figure out what messages are coming into them. So the one thing the creator did was made that universal, just like the knowledge that you gain. So the information comes in from the left if it's evil, and comes in from the right if it's not. It doesn't matter what that information is telling you on the left. If it's telling you that you're the greatest thing in the world, or I'm God talking to you, if it's coming from your left side, it is evil, period. That's the one thing that is definite in the universe, just like all knowledge in the universe is universal, either in service to self or in service to others. It comes from the universe itself. People don't make this up. I don't make it up. It's not something that I'm making up as I'm talking. It's the way the universe works. Okay. Right? Denise said, Penny, maybe your ass was telling you something today. Right? That's hilarious. But I mean, that's the truth of it. Right? Some people say that. I said that to Brooke. I said, I just pulled that out of my ass. Right? I mean, that's funny when you do that. So you have to realize that this is what Raw's talking about, that free will, first of all, will usurp that. So you get to a point where there's a wall where you can't tell people certain things because they're not ready for it. And that's what Raw was talking about. But to learn, and then we'll get back on point with Raw, to learn what a download feels like, you have to first realize your own communication with your higher self and what that channel feels like, and then your communication with your guides and what that feels like. And if you're a medium and you're channeling and talking to other people's family members, what that energy feels like and where it's coming from. Is it coming from their higher self? Is it coming from their guides? Is it actually the person? Once you start feeling those channels and recognizing where that information is coming from, you'll realize that all the information that comes into you has a different frequency. And when you come from your higher self or your guides, they'll have a specific frequency, like a fingerprint, that you can actually identify and know who you're talking to or who's talking to you. Downloads are the same. Once you start doing that with everything else, you can then realize downloads and realize what channel that is and that it's a download. And then you'll be more aware when they come in. Same thing when you have telepathic communication with another human. First is the trust issue where you don't trust people. And then once you trust them, then you don't trust if you're making it up or not. And once you start to corroborate things with one another and start realizing that you are actually thinking those things back and forth, then that channel becomes more apparent. It's just like, learning a channel on Facebook or YouTube or on Messenger, to where you know where to go to communicate with that person. Same thing happens with all your downloads from your higher self, from your guides and everything else. Okay, let's continue. So free will sometimes usurps things, and so you can't tell a person something. And in this case, they were talking about Carla making a decision to not buy clothes and worrying about upgrades and stuff like that, right? So isn't that funny? All right, let's continue.
Space. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. We cannot say that the observation is totally incorrect, for there is as much work in time-space as the individual who evokes this complex of concepts has assimilated. However, it would be more appropriate to draw the attention to the fact that although the chariot is wheeled, it is not harnessed to that which draws it by a physical or visible harness. What then, O student, links and harnesses the chariot's power of movement to the chariot? Question 103.13. Questioner, I'll have to think about that. I'll come back to that. We were thinking of replacing the sword in the right hand with the magical sphere and putting a downward pointing scepter in the left hand, similar to card 5, the significator, as symbols more appropriate for this card. Would Ra comment on that, please? Answer, I am Ra. This is quite acceptable, especially if the sphere may be imaged as spherical and effulgent. Question 103.14. Questioner, the bent left leg of the Sphinxes indicates a transformation that occurs on the left that doesn't occur on the right, possibly an inability in that position to move. Does this have any merit? Answer, I am Ra. The observation has merit in that it may serve as the obverse of the connotation intended. The position is intended to show two items, one of which is the dual possibilities of the time-full characters there drawn. The resting is possible in time, as is the progress. If a mixture is attempted, the upright, moving leg will be greatly hampered by the leg that is bent. The other meaning has to do with the same right angle, with its architectural squareness, as the device upon the breast of the actor. Time-space is closed in this concept complex, brought close due to the veiling process and its efficaciousness in producing actors who wish to use the resources of the mind in order to evolve. Question 103.15. Questioner: I am assuming that the skirt is skewed to the left for the same reason that it is in card number 4, indicating the distance service to self-polarized entities keep from others, and I am also assuming that the face is turned to the left for the same reason that it is in card number 5, because of the nature of catalyst. Is this roughly correct? Answer: I am Ra. Please expel breath over the breast of the instrument from right to left. This was done as directed. I am Ra. That as well. Your previous supposition is indeed roughly correct. We might also note that we, in forming the original images for your peoples, were using the cultural commonplaces of artistic expression of those in Egypt. The face is drawn to the side most often, as are the feet turned. We made use of this and, thus, wished to soften the significance of the sidelong look. In no case thus far in these deliberations, however, has any misinterpretation or unsuitable interpretation been drawn. Question 103.16. Questioner: Our appropriate time limit for this working, I believe, is rapidly approaching, so I would like to ask what was the problem in this session when twice in this session we had to expel breath over the instrument's chest? Answer: I am Ra. This instrument is unaware of the method used to contact Ra. However, its desire was particularly strong at the outset of this working, for this working to transpire. Thus it inadvertently was somewhat premature in its leaving of the yellow ray, physical body. In this state the object was dropped upon the instrument which you call the typing microphone. The unexpected contact caused injury of the chest muscles, and we would advise some care depending from this working to avoid stress so that this injury may heal. There is a metaphysical component to this injury and, therefore, we wished to be quite sure that all portions of the environment were cleansed. Since this place of working has not its usual level of protection, we used your breath to so cleanse the environment, which was at risk. Question 103.17. Questioner: Is the reason for this lack of protection the fact that it has been a considerable time since we have worked in here? Answer: I am Ra. No. Question 103.18. Questioner: What is the reason? Answer: I am Ra. The lack of regular repetition of the so-called banishing ritual is the lack of which we spoke. Question 103.19. Questioner: From this I assume that it would be most appropriate to perform the banishing ritual daily in this room. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. That is acceptable. Question 103.20. Questioner: I don't want to overtire the instrument. We're running close to time here. I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to improve the contact or to make the instrument more comfortable, and anything else that Ra could state at this time that would aid us. Answer: I am Ra. We find the alignments quite fastidiously observed. You are conscientious. Continue in support, one for the other, and find the praise and thanksgiving that harmony produces. Rest your cares and be the merry. I am Ra. I leave you, glorying in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Okay, so we'll move on to session 104. That'll prime itself. And that was session 103, June 10th, 1983, of the Law of One. 104 should start. Might have a commercial ahead of time. We'll see. Nope. Session 104, 104, July 27th, 1983.
We greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 104.1. Questioner: Could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer: I am Ra. The readings are somewhat less distorted towards physical bankruptcy and vital energy loss than at the previous asking. There is still considerable bias in these readings. Question 104.2. Questioner: the instrument would like to know what is the optimum amount of aerobics, walking, and whirlpool exercises for the best condition at this time. Answer: I am Ra. We shall answer in two ways. Firstly, to speak to the general case which pertains to this instrument in varying degree. Each form of exercise is well accomplished approximately 3 to 4 times per your week. The amount of exercise, all quantified as one sum, is approximately 1 hour per diurnal period. We now answer in a second way, distorted in this response to the duple conditions of yellow ray, physical difficulty and mind complex distortion. The swirling waters then must needs be viewed as being appropriate 4 to 5 of your times per week. The walking and the exercising as much as is desired by the entity. The total of all these should in no case exceed 90 minutes per diurnal period. The yellow ray, physical body has been experiencing that which is called leukoid changes in much tissue of muscle and some of the organs as well. The exercise regains the wasting physical muscular strength. In some ways the walking is the more appropriate exercise due to the proximity of the entity to second-density creatures, particularly your trees. However, the habitation you enjoy does not offer such opportunity and instead offers the proximity to creations of mind, body, spirit complexes. This does not feed the mental-emotional needs of this entity, although it produces the same physical result. The exercise fulfills more of the mental-emotional need due to the entity's fondness for rhythmic expressions of the body, such as those found in athletic endeavors derivative of the artifact system which is known among your peoples as the dance. We suggest the support group encourage any exercise except that which exceeds the time limit, which is already far beyond the physical limitations of this body complex. It is the way of distortion that in order to balance a distortion one must accentuate it. Thusly, the overwearing of the body may, if correctly motivated, produce a lack of deficit, at which juncture the lesser exercise limitations should be put into practice.
Sorry, that was long, right? You got to think about that. And I also apologize because apparently right then 3 people decided to call my cell phone and my house phone over and over again. It was my publisher trying to call me, at least 3 of those phone calls. And then somebody else was trying to call me as well. So I apologize if you heard the phone ringing in the background. I'm sure you heard the TV. Can't do anything about that, right? As long as mom is in that room, then she's going to have the TV there. So once that's changed, there'll be something different going on, and we won't be able to have to worry about that. But yeah, the phone was ringing, so I'm sure you guys heard that in the background ringing over and over and over again.
Question 104.3. Questioner: the instrument has determined that the unwise use of her will is its use without the joy and faith components and constitutes martyrdom. Would Ra comment on that, please? Answer: I am Ra. We are pleased that the entity has pondered that which has been given. We would comment as follows. It is salubrious for the instrument to have knowledge which is less distorted towards martyrdom and which is rich in promise. The entity which is strong to think shall either be strong to act, or that which it has shall be removed. Thus manifestation of knowledge is an area to be examined by the instrument. We would further note that balancing which, in this entity's case, is best accomplished in analysis and manifestation seated with the contemplation of silence may be strengthened by manifested silence and lack of routine activity. We may go no further than this recommendation of regularized leisure, and desire that the entity discover the fundamental truths of these distortions as it will. Question 104.4. Questioner: is there anything further that we can do to help the instrument's stomach and back spasming problem? Answer: I am Ra. The greatest aid is already being given to the fullest. The encouragement of the instrument to refrain from the oil-fried nature of foodstuffs in its intake is helpful. Cheerful harmony is helpful. The spasms must subside as a function of the entity's indigo ray work and, to some extent, the recommendations made in response to a previous query. The definitive refraining from overstepping the already swollen boundaries of physical limitation is recommended. The infection remains and the symptoms are now far less medicable, the entity having chosen the catalyst. Question 100.
You have to realize that that when you choose this path of life, when you choose to be a light worker, you become a target. They target different things. You can also, if you're not paying attention, you can get your chakras blocked by yourself without realizing you're doing it. You can cause yourself inflammation. You can cause yourself, oh, thank you, Joanne, because it was very loud for me. You can cause yourself, blockages that cause inflammation, that cause different things, eating the wrong foods and stuff. So, yeah, I thought for sure you guys could hear it. And my cell phone was ringing, which I have muted. Then the house phone rang. They called my cell phone, and I put it to voicemail. Then they called the house phone. It went to voicemail, and then they called the house phone again. Then somebody else called the house phone and my cell phone as well. So the phone was ringing. Literally, both phones were ringing for almost 4.5 minutes there. And you guys couldn't hear it. I feel better about that, that you couldn't hear it. So you have to realize that what you eat, that's what we say we are what we eat. What you eat is going to affect you, right? What you put into your body is going to affect your body. What you affect your body with is going to affect your spirit. Everything is a totality. Spirit, mind, body, totality, right? So you have that oneness, and then you have that completeness of all of those together that you have to be aware of. You have to balance not just your chakras. You have to balance your spirit. You have to balance your mind. You have to balance your physical body. All of those things need to be in proper balance for you to work properly, to do whatever it is that you're doing in a spiritual way. You can't, eat crap, and as my stepfather would say, eat shit and howl at the moon, and expect that you're going to, that you're going to be the greatest psychic on the face of the earth. You have to take care of your body. You can't channel information or another entity or even your higher self if your physical body can't handle it. If your mind mentally can't handle it, if your soul spiritually isn't ready for it, you have to work on all three of those phases of who you are and your psyche to then be able to round everything out to make things work properly. You have to take care of yourself. You have to put yourself in the right frame of mind. You have to make sure the energy around you is the right energy. So you have to treat your environment. So that's another factor. So you don't just you have to remember taste, touch, smell, feel, all of those things. You have to remember that you are in a place. That place is wherever you're at. Like I'm in this house, and I have to protect this house and get all the negative energy out of the house so that I can do this without having to be bombarded with negative energy. So the only inlet into this house is cell phone, house phone, trying to call into it because all the other energy can't come in. So you have distractions, television being on in the background that my mom is watching. That's a distraction. But she grew up in a time when they sat in front of the television. So because of that, she sits in front of the television. So that stuff is on for her to look at and occupy her time. She's elderly, right? So because of that, that's a distraction for her and for anybody else that's in within earshot, till you get numb to it and you're able to push it out. You push the negative energy out. The same thing, once you push it out beyond the boundaries of the house that you're in, you clear yourself, you clear the room, you clear the people that are in the room with you or in the house with you, you clear all that out, then the only outlet or the only inlet they have is through computers, cell phones, and the like to try and bombard you with whatever they can to disrupt whatever it is that you're doing. And the same thing happens with food, with your own blockages, with things that are going on. That's what Raw's talking about here, is trying to show how you have to grab this totality and see it as a totality. You have to balance yourself in the physical, in the astral plane, in the mental plane. All of those planes are the same. They're just different aspects of the same illusion. But you have to learn to balance yourself in all of those places. Who am I internally? Who am I externally? Who am I in the physical? Who am I in the spiritual? What am I affected by? What am I eating? How am I sleeping? How am I exercising? Am I doing any of those? Am I excessively drinking alcohol, excessively eating poisonous food? Am I eating 5 pounds of sugar a day? You have to look at those things. People just live their life and they're used to doing it, so they don't think about it, and they go and get a coffee and put 4 or 5 scoops of sugar in 1 cup of coffee. I like my coffee sweet, and that's causing their blood to be thicker, their heart to work harder, their blood pressure goes up because of it. Your body isn't as efficient. It doesn't break down foods properly and get it to your limbs. It doesn't oxygenate your blood or your limbs properly just from that. And then if you throw salt on top of it, caffeine on top of it, all these things that are diuretics and that cause your heart rate to go up, and smoke cigarettes cause your heart rate to go up. You have all these things that you add, not to mention illegal drugs, not to mention illegal drugs, all the things that they do to your mind and your physical body. Those are all designed to distract you away from taking care of yourself and learning yourself and ascending. It's a distraction to keep you in this place as long as it can. You have to become aware of those. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. Okay, let's continue here.
104.5. Questioner, can you tell us what is wrong with our cat, Gandalf's eyes? Answer, I am Ra. The one known as Gandalf nears the end of its incarnation. Its eyesight dims and the aqueous membrane becomes tough. This is not a comfortable circumstance, but is one which causes the entity no true discomfort. Question 104.6. Questioner, is there anything that we can do to alleviate this situation? Answer, I am Ra. There is a course of therapy which would aid the situation. However, we do not recommend it as the condition is more benign than the treatment. Question 104.7. Questioner, I don't understand. Could you explain what you meant? Answer, I am Ra. A doctor of the allopathic tradition would give you the drops for the eyes. The cat would find the experience of being confined while the drops were given more distorted than the discomfort it now feels but is able to largely ignore. Question 104.8. Questioner, can the cat see at all? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 104.9. Questioner, does it seem that the cat will lose all of its vision in the very near future, or is the cat very near death? Answer, I am Ra. The one known as Gandalf will not lose eyesight or life on most probability vortices for 3 of your seasons, approximately. Question 104.10. Questioner, I feel very bad about the condition of the cat and really would like to help it. Can Ra suggest anything that we can do to help out Gandalf? Answer, I am Ra. Yes.
Gotta love the snarkiness again, right?
Question 104.11. Questioner, what would that be? Answer, I am Ra. Firstly, we would suggest that probability vortices include those in which the entity known as Gandalf has a lengthier incarnation. Secondly, we would suggest that this entity goes to a graduation if it desires. Otherwise, it may choose to reincarnate to be with those companions it has loved. Thirdly, the entity known to you as Betty has the means of making the entity more distorted towards discomfort. Question 104.12. Questioner, could you tell me who you mean by Betty? I'm not sure that I know who you mean by Betty. And what Betty would do? Answer, I am Ra. The one known as Carter has this information.
Right. I mean, that's unfortunate. Brooke says, I put it up on the screen for those of you on the MP4 file broadcast. You can see that for those of you listening around the world with the MP3 broadcast. Brooke was talking about the drugs and the stuff and how amazing this is. So true. So many prescription drugs out there do more damage than cause more drugs to be taken to counteract these drugs, right? They give you drugs and then those drugs have side effects and they have to give you drugs to help you with the side effects from that drug. Why didn't they just design the drug so that it didn't have those side effects? If they have another drug that counteracts those side effects, why didn't they just add that to the drug that they were giving to you instead of adding another drug and having to charge you money? You got to ask that question. What's going on there? They're drug dealers. That's what's going on there. Pharmaceutical companies are drug dealers and they want money. So therefore they're designing and allowing things to have problems or designing it into for the problems. We don't know which until the investigation is done on these global empires. But you have to look at that and go, why are they allowed to have these out there with those things that are obviously there that they know about because they've created another drug to counteract that or to help people with that. Why is it that they're allowed to do that and have a drug that has a problem and then create another drug to supposedly help with that problem that may just give another problem to another thing, and they need to put you on 10 medications, and then all of a sudden when you're on 10 medications you're not on any more medications, and then you have those 10 medications but your life expectancy drops down to about 4 or 5 years while you're on those 10 medications, but they don't seem to mind that. Why is it that these same pharmaceutical companies, who obviously know what the cure is, isn't designing that pill to not have that complication that they need to have that other one for? Why are they never doing that? They're not, and they're just giving you a drug to counteract it. But they know it, and the same people are manufacturing a drug to counteract it. So if they know that, why aren't they fixing it? They're not. They're doing it so they sell you more drugs. That has to be done on purpose. There's no other reason why they would be doing that, because they already know the answer to that problem, but they're not doing it. They're just giving you a Band-Aid, and they're not curing anything that you have wrong with you. Let's continue.
Question 104.13. Questioner, I'm concerned about the possibility of moving. If we did move, it would make it very difficult for Gandalf to find his way around a new place if he can't see. Does he see enough to be able to find his way around a new environment? Answer, I am Ra. The vision is less than adequate, but is nearly accommodated by our keen sense of smell and of hearing. The companions and the furnishings being familiar, a new milieu would be reasonably expected to be satisfactorily acceptable within a short period of your...
And I got to go and relieve myself. I apologize. I'm drinking a lot of water and caffeine today. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to let this play, okay? I'll be right back.
Or space-time. Question 104.14. Questioner, could we administer the drops that you spoke of that would help his eyesight so that he wouldn't be confined? Is there any way that we could do that? Answer, I am Ra. It is unlikely. Question 104.15. Questioner, there's nothing that we can do. Is there any other possibility of using any techniques to help his eyesight? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 104.16. Questioner, is this loss of eyesight? What is the metaphysical reason for the loss of eyesight? What brought it about? Answer, I am Ra. In this case, the metaphysical component is tiny. This is the condign catalyst of old age. Question 104.17. Questioner, with the drops that you spoke of that would aid the eyesight, how much would they aid the eyesight if they were administered? Answer, I am Ra. Over a period of applications, the eyesight would improve somewhat, perhaps 20, perhaps 30%. The eye region would feel less tight. Balanced against this is rapidly increasing stiffness of motion, so that the holding in a still position is necessarily quite uncomfortable. Question 104.18. Questioner, then Ra thinks that the benefit derived from these drops would not be worth the cat's discomfort. This would probably... Is there any way that the cat could be given anesthetic and the drops put into the eyes so that the cat was not aware of them? Answer, I am Ra. The harm done by putting the allopathic anesthetic into the body complex of this harvestable entity far overshadows the stillness accruing therefrom, which would allow administration of medicaments. Question 104.19. Questioner, I'm sorry to belabor this subject so much, but I was really hoping to come up with something to help Gandalf. I assume then that Ra has suggested that we leave things as they are? How many applications of drops would be necessary to get some help for the eyes, roughly? Ra, approximately 40 to 60. Question 104.20. Questioner, each day, or something like that. Answer, I am Ra. Please expel breath over this instrument's breast. This was done as directed. Question 104.21. Questioner, is that satisfactory? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 104.22. Questioner, I had asked if the drops should be administered once per diurnal period. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. This depends upon the allopathic physician from whom you receive them. Question 104.23. Questioner, what is the name of the drops? Answer, I am Ra. We have a difficulty. Therefore, we shall refrain from answering this query. Question 104.24. Questioner, I am sorry to belabor this point. I am very concerned about the cat, and I understand that Ra recommends that we do not use the drops, and we won't. I just wanted to know what it was that we weren't doing that would help the eyesight, and I apologize for belaboring this point. I'll close just by asking Ra if there is any further recommendation that he could make with respect to this cat. Answer, I am Ra. Rejoice in its companionship.
Love the cat, right? Love the cat. What should we do? Love the cat. Enjoy it while you have it.
Question 104.25. Questioner, when we got our introduction back from our publisher on the book, which originally was called The Law of One, in the introduction Carla had been speaking on reincarnation, and there was this sentence added. For although originally part of Jesus' teachings, they were censored from all subsequent editions by the Empress. Would Ra please comment on the source of that being placed in our introduction? Answer, I am Ra. This follows the way of subjectively interesting happenings, conditions, circumstances, or coincidences. We would suggest one more full query at this time. Question 104.26. Questioner, prior to the veiling process there was, I am assuming, no archetypical plan for the evolutionary process. It was totally left up to the free will of the mind, body, spirits to evolve in any way that they desired. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. No. I am Ra.
No, but then he goes on. Usually just snarky, but he's going to end there, right? That's funny. So, yeah. So the question about the words of Jesus and that it was eradicated from everything. Ra was like, that was just a happenstance, interesting happenings, conditions, circumstances, coincidence. So it wasn't done on purpose. There was no nefarious action. It was just something that coincidentally happened.
We leave you in appreciation of the circumstances of the great illusion in which you now choose to play the pipe and timbrel and move in rhythm. We are also players upon a stage. The stage changes. The acts ring down. The lights come up once again. And throughout the grand illusion and the following there is the undergirding majesty of the one infinite creator. All is well. Nothing is lost. Go forth rejoicing in the love and the light, the peace and the power of the one infinite creator. I am Ra. Adonai.
So that's session 104 of 106 of the Law of One. So we're getting close to the end of it for the second time, guys. Taken 2 years, 10 months, thereabouts. Right, that was July 7th, 1983. We're going to go to session 105.
If you've been trying to lose weight and have one of these insurance plans, you can work with a nutritionist for...
Skip. Okay, Law of One, October 19th, 1983. 105.
I am Ra.
105.
I greet you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Question 105.1. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. The vital energies of this instrument are in a much more biased state than the previous asking, with the faculties of will and faith having regained their prominent place in this entity's existence and balance. The physical deficit continues. Question 105.2. Questioner, I am sorry that we have to ask so many maintenance questions. We seem to be in a confused condition now with respect to our abilities to continue in the direction that we wish to with respect to the archetypical mind. I would like to ask what caused the symmetrical welts on the instrument's back, and is there anything further that we can do to heal the instrument and her condition, including these welts? Answer, I am Ra. The welting is a symptom of that which has been a prolonged psychic greeting. The opportunity for this entity to experience massive allergic reaction from streptococcal and staphylococcal viruses has been offered in hopes that this entity would wish to leave the incarnation. The previous occurrence of this state of the mind complex which occurred upon, in your time numbering system, the 9th month, the 12th day, of your present planetary solar revolution caught your 5th density companion unprepared. The entity is now prepared. There have been 2 instances wherein this entity could have started the reaction since the first opportunity was missed. Firstly, the opportunity to separate self from other self in connection with the choosing of an house. Secondly, the possible vision of self separated from other self in regard to the dissolving of mundane bonds concerning the leaving of this dwelling. Both opportunities were met by this entity with a refusal to separate self from other self, with further work also upon the indigo ray level concerning the avoidance of martyrdom while maintaining unity and love. Thusly, this instrument has had its immunal defenses breached and its lymphatic system involved in the invasion of these viri. You may see some merit in a purging of the instrument's yellow ray chemical body in order to more quickly aid the weakened body complex in its attempt to remove these substances. Techniques include therapeutic enemas or colonics, the sauna once or twice in a day, and the use of vigorous rubbing of the integument for the period of approximately 7 of your diurnal periods. We speak not of diet, not because it might not aid, but because this entity ingests small quantities of any substance and is already avoiding certain substances, notably fresh milk and oil. Question.
Right. So here's Carla trying to, retune herself and her body constantly because of how taxing it was to be channeling raw all the time in what they were doing. And then she was under attack by an assassin that was in the fifth density, the fifth dimension, that was trying to kill her off to stop this information from getting out to the world. So she was having a lot of problems, which eventually, and around, I think it was 2015 or so, eventually took her life. She had to cut her life short. Last time I saw her, she was they wheeled her out in front of an audience in a gurney because she couldn't walk. So yeah, that was not too long before she had passed. So she was constantly paying the price to do what she was doing, but she was, instead of stopping to really take care of herself, she continued to plug ahead. That's why you hear them say, Ross saying over and over that, that she has chosen the path of the martyr. So she was to be martyred for what she was doing. So eventually it did catch up with her, and eventually she did succumb to her injuries accumulative from the 1970s, especially in the 80s when they were channeling Ra, and then she went on to channel many other people from entities from around the galaxy, giving more and more information to the population. And eventually, it unfortunately did end with her life cut short.
In 105.3, questioner. Is there any particular place that the integument should be vigorously rubbed? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 105.4. Questioner, could you please tell me what caused Jim's kidney problem to return, and what can be done to heal it? Answer, I am Ra. The entity, Jim, determined that it would cleanse itself and thus would spend time, space and space-time in pursuit and contemplation of perfection. The dedication to this working was intensified until the mind, body, spirit complex rang in harmony with this intention. The entity did not grasp the literal way in which metaphysical intentions are translated by the body complex of one working in utter unity of purpose. The entity began the period of prayer, fasting, penitence, and rejoicing. The body complex, which was not yet fully recovered from the necrotic syndrome, began to systematically cleanse each organ, sending all the detritus that was not perfect through kidneys which were not given enough liquid to dilute the toxins being released. The toxins stayed with the body complex and reactivated a purely physical illness. There is no metaphysical portion in this relapse. The healing is taking place in manifestation of an affirmation of body complex health which, barring untoward circumstance, shall be completely efficacious.
See, so you have to realize that even when you're healing, right, your body will release toxins, and you have to be able to transmute those toxins out of your body, right? So you have to have enough water in your system to be able to flush that stuff out. You have to learn that stuff about yourself, and you have to learn how to do that, and you have to learn that that is a thing. So if something's going on, even in a spiritual way, and you're cleansing your body, you have to have the right foodstuffs and the right liquid in your body and the amounts of these things to be able to help you aid yourself, not just, waving smoke at yourself, but that helps. Not just waving smoke at yourself. You also have to be eating right. You have to be sleeping right. You have to be drinking the right amounts of liquid. if you're a light worker of any kind, you know that, and you work on that stuff because you know that you burn energy when you're doing that stuff, and that burning of the energy burns up all the sugar and glucose and water in your system. If you don't know that, you're going to quickly figure that out, right? You will quickly figure that out, right? Yeah, Joanne needs more water, always more water. You should always have water. When I sit down, I have a big glass of water, which is I think 32 ounces. And then, of course, I have a tea or a coffee as well, but I make sure that I have a lot of water. And then after I'm done, I drink a ton of water. I do that all the time. Anytime that I'm channeling any information, if I'm doing Reiki or otherwise casting spells or channeling when I'm talking, like I'm, teaching this class, I make sure that I'm doing it. Brooke was here. She can tell you about that. She was here and watched me and aided me in the recovery of being, channeling. And then afterwards, most of you guys don't know about that because I don't talk to anybody afterwards. I'm usually very quiet and like a hermit. I go inside and maybe text people messages back and forth, but I don't usually have conversations with anybody for a couple of hours after doing a 3-hour session because of how intense that is and how I'm still out of my head. I'm still very up there and not down here, and I have to reground. She can tell you that from being here for the 3 weeks that she was here, that's a thing that, she worries about even today because she's back in Australia. And she was worried about me cleansing properly here. So you have to make sure, I hate tap water and bottled water, whereas it's not always good either. You can get filters and filter your own water. You can also get a reverse osmosis machine and make your own water so you can filter out all the stuff that you don't want. Because Penny said, I hate tap water, and filtered water is not always good either. It's not. Sometimes filtered water is, it's just tap water that they filtered. So you have to look at that sort of stuff too. So you have to make sure that and that you're doing the right things. And here's Cassie. Good for her. Good for you, Cassie. She said, "Hey, fam, I actually quit smoking last Sunday. I also no weed. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that part. For a month and no whiskey. Okay, that's good. So no smoking, no alcohol. Those are good. The weed you don't necessarily have to quit. But if you want to quit that, then you're okay too. I did that for a while. I quit it for a long time too. When I quit drinking, I quit smoking pot for a long time. But I'm, smoking pot again these days, like every day. But, good for you, Cassie. It's not an easy thing to do, especially doing like all of that at once, but you're doing it. Stay with it. Run with it. I'm proud of you. I hope that you do. And I hope that you start the routines. Because you have to break the routine. Smoking is really, really diligent routines that you do. You take a shower, you have a cigarette. You eat food, you have a cigarette. You have sex, you have a cigarette. You do everything you do, you reward yourself with a cigarette. Alcohol becomes the same. So in those moments, you have to change that routine and not do those things. At first, they're really scary and it bothers you and you get stressed out over it. Over time, you start realizing that the new normal, you don't need that drug, and that the new normal is just you doing what you do. So just stay diligent and stay after it. It's day by day. Talk to Jacqueline. She was a lot of help to me when I was in starting my sobriety. She's been at it for 5 or 6 years now, clean and sober. That I'm 3 years clean and sober. I think she's even more than that, 5 years. I think she's like 6 or 8 years. That I'm 3 years, clean and sober, but I still smoke pot. I just don't drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes or anything. So good for you. Stay after it. Yeah, the smoking is the hardest. It's harder than heroin. She said smoking was the hardest. Smoking is, they literally have said that the hardest drug on the earth to get off of when you're addicted to it is cigarettes, is nicotine. Nicotine and caffeine are pretty hard, but nicotine is the hardest drug to get over. If you can make it past the first 30 days, you're good. Alcohol, you just got to make it past the DTs. That usually takes about a week, sometimes a little longer, depending on how much you drank, if you even get them at all. But cigarettes, that is a psychological thing. And I teach people, because they taught me that the cigarette craving is only a 5-minute craving. So when you get a craving for cigarettes, all you have to do is occupy yourself for 5 minutes and talk yourself out of lighting that cigarette. And then the craving goes away. and it'll go away for like an hour, and then it'll come back unless you're obsessed with it, and then it'll come right back. But if not, it'll go away, and then an hour later, when you're on your regular habit of whatever that was in between cigarettes, unless you're a chain smoker, then it's harder. Whatever that normal interval was, most people it's an hour, 45 minutes to an hour in between cigarettes. It'll hit you again and hit you again, and you just have to go, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to smoke that cigarette, right? And once you get past that 5-minute mark, it'll go away, right? I have to quit smoking cigarettes again tomorrow. Penny says tomorrow. So I wish me luck. You just have to do it. Just like everything that I was saying just now, you have to realize that the cigarette is not in control of you, but it's a 5-minute increment. Once you get past that 5 minutes, you'll be okay. Right. With anything, Brooke says, with anything, let me put it up on the screen. I can read it to you. With anything, the hardest thing, the hardest thing is to not want it anymore. Once you decide that you don't want it, it's easier. Yeah, you have to. Once you make that decision, like when I quit drinking, I enjoyed drinking alcohol. I didn't drink it because it was a crutch. Most people they're like, oh, they drink because they're drowning their sorrows. I wasn't drowning my sorrows. I enjoyed drinking alcohol. Drank it because I liked it. And as it turns out, the high that I was looking for was actually from smoking pot. That's the high I was looking for with alcohol. Once I started smoking pot when I was drinking, I realized quickly the alcohol wasn't what I was looking for. The high from the THC is what I was looking for. The DMT or the ayahuasca, that high is what I was looking for to expand my consciousness. So for me, once I made the decision to quit drinking alcohol, I got past the DTs and I just never looked back. Cigarettes took me, I still have dreams about that. The cigarettes took me a while to get past and over. They're really hard. And I'm not saying that it's hard because it was the hardest thing for me. I had learned that afterwards when I was quitting smoking, that cigarettes are the hardest drug to get over. So Brooke was lucky. You were lucky. She said, cigarettes were not hard for me. I gave up cold turkey 8 years ago with no need for it anymore. Good for you. I was so addicted to it that I had to, the patches didn't work for me. My body chemistry doesn't work where the patch won't stick to me. And they're like, oh, it'll stick to anything. I'm like, not my chemistry. It won't stick to my skin. My skin refuses to have it on there and it comes off truly. So then I put tape over it and then it wouldn't let the tape stick. My body didn't like the patch, but I told you guys I got those things that they now sell in the United States, but they didn't at the time. Now they sell them in the United States, and I started using those, and it took me a month, and then I was a pain in the butt to my wife for a month, but I got past it, and things were better. Okay, let's continue. So, yeah, you have to just stay diligent, guys, and keep after it. Brooke said my weakness was alcohol. Mine too. The cigarettes I was addicted to and it was hard to get off of, but alcohol I enjoyed. I enjoyed cigarettes too. So those were a choice. I wasn't smoking and drinking because of, whatever in life. I liked them. So it was harder for me to get over them because I enjoyed doing it. So, but I did. It just took time. All right, let's continue here.
Question 105.5. Questioner, is any consideration of the appropriateness of the house at Lake Lanier which we intend to move to, or special preparation other than that planned advisable? Answer, I am Ra. We believe you have queried obliquely. Please requery. Question 105.6. Questioner, we plan to cleanse the property at the Lake Lanier location using the techniques prescribed by Ra, having to do with using the salt for 36 hours, etc. I would like to know if this is sufficient or if there is any salient problem with respect to moving to that house that Ra could advise upon at this time, please. Answer, I am Ra. The cleansing of the dwelling of which you speak need be only 3 nights and 2 days. This dwelling is benign. The techniques are acceptable. We find 3 areas in which use of garlic as previously described would be beneficial. Firstly, the bunk bedroom, below the top sleeping pallet. Secondly, the exterior of the dwelling facing the road and centering about the small rocks approximately 2/3 of the length of the dwelling from the driveway side. Thirdly, there is the matter of the boathouse. We suggest weekly cleansings of that area with garlic, the cut onions and the walking of a light-filled perimeter. The garlic and onion, renewed weekly, should remain permanently hung, suspended from string or wire between workings.
All right, so this is, think about that. Garlic back in the day, people would string garlic because they said it kept out the vampires. What they were really talking about was negative energy and negative spirits. But yeah, here we have. Now, they talked about this a couple of sessions ago because they were moving to a new place and they needed to cleanse the dwelling, cleanse the working area, and set up their altar and stuff like that. So now they're kind of discussing that.
Question 105.7. Questioner, just so that I don't make a mistake in interpreting your directions with respect to the second area outside the house, could you give me a distance and magnetic compass heading from the exact center of the dwelling to that position? Answer, I am Ra. We may only be approximate but would suggest a distance of 37 feet, a magnetic heading of 84 to 92 degrees. Question 105.8. Questioner, I know that it is unimportant for our purposes, and from the philosophical point of view I don't want to do anything to upset the law of confusion, so don't feel that it is necessary to answer this, but I was wondering what condition created the necessity for such continual cleansing of the boathouse? Answer, I am Ra. The intent is to create a perimeter within which the apiary denizens will not find it necessary to sting and indeed will not find it promising to inhabit. Question 105.9. Questioner, are you speaking of bees or wasps or creatures of that type? Answer, I am Ra. That is so. Question 105.10. Questioner, are Jim's plans and ritual for the deconsecrating of this dwelling sufficient, or should something be added or changed? Answer, I am Ra. No change is necessary. The points necessary to be included in consecration or deconsecration of the place are covered. We may suggest that each second density, woody plant which you have invested during your tenancy within this dwelling be thanked and blessed. Question 105.11. Questioner, is there any other suggestion that Ra could make with respect to any part of this move that is planned, and will we have any problems at all in contacting Ra in the new dwelling? And if so, will Ra tell us about those and what we could do to alleviate any problems in contacting Ra in the new dwelling? Answer, I am Ra. We weigh this answer carefully, for it comes close to abrogation of free will, but find the proximity acceptable due to this instrument's determination to be of service to the one infinite creator regardless of personal circumstances. Any physical aid upon the part of the instrument in the packing and unpacking will activate those allergic reactions lying dormant for the most part at this time. This entity is allergic to those items which are unavoidable in transitions within your third density illusion, that is, dust, mildew, etc. The one known as Bob will be evaded in this regard. The scribe should take care also to imbibe a doubled quantity of liquids in order that any allergically caused toxins may be flushed from the body complex. There is no difficulty in resuming contact through this tuned instrument with the social memory complex, Ra, in the chosen dwelling or, indeed, in any place whatsoever once physical and metaphysical cleansing has been accomplished.
Right, the end of this part 1 of 2, session 105.
How about free health insurance?
Any
Visit
questions?
healthforcalifornia.com.
Let's skip that. All right, part 2 of 2 of session 105.
Question 105.12. Questioner, I have come to the conclusion that the meaning of the hawk that we had about a year ago when we started to move the first time had to do with the non-benign nature of the house, in the metaphysical sense which I had picked. If it would not interfere with the law of confusion, I think that would be philosophically interesting to know if I am correct with respect to that. Answer, I am Ra. What bird comes to affirm for Ra? What bird would be chosen to warn? We asked the questioner to ponder these queries. Question 105.13. Questioner, we have been, you might say, experimentally determining a lot of things about the body, the next portion of the tarot, and have been experiencing some of the feedback effects, you might say, between the mind and the body. From everything that we have done so far with respect to these effects, the great value of the third density, yellow ray body at this time is as a device that feeds back catalyst to create the polarization, I would say. I would ask Ra if initially when they were designed for third density experience, the mind, body, spirits, not the mind, body, spirit complexes, had as the major use of the yellow ray body the feeding back of catalyst, and if not, what was the purpose of the yellow ray body? Answer, I am Ra. The description which began your query is suitable for the function of the mind, body, spirit, or the mind, body, spirit complex. The position in creation of physical manifestation changed not one whit when the veil of forgetting was dropped. Question 105.14. Questioner, then the yellow ray body, from the very beginning, was designed as what Ra has called an athana for the mind, a device to accelerate the evolution of the mind. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. It is perhaps more accurate to note that the yellow ray physical vehicle is a necessity without which the mind, body, spirit complex cannot pursue evolution at any pace. Question 105.15. Questioner, then you are saying that the evolution of that portion of the individual that has not yellow ray is not possible without the clothing at intervals in the yellow ray body. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. No.
No, snarky Ra, right? Would you clear up my thinking on that then?
Question 105.16. Questioner, would you clear up my thinking on that? I didn't quite understand your statement. Answer, I am Ra. Each mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, spirit complex has an existence simultaneous with that of creation. It is not dependent upon any physical vehicle. However, in order to evolve, change, learn, and manifest the creator, the physical vehicles appropriate to each density are necessary. Your query implied that physical vehicles accelerated growth. The more accurate description is that they permit growth.
See, so each mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, spirit complex, totality, has the existence simultaneous with that of the creation. Okay, so your higher self, or your higher self, is part of the creation. Okay, so you need to realize that. Okay, so you need to realize that you don't just exist down here. You don't just exist as your higher self. You don't just exist as your higher self, but you exist simultaneously here and with the creator, all the way back to the creator. Because there is no time. Time only exists in the third dimension, first, second, and third dimension. After that, time begins to wane. Time becomes just the distance it takes the physical body to move from one place to another. Okay? So you need to realize that your existence is everywhere at the exact same time, in every time at the exact same time, outside of time. So you're fractured into many, many different individuals that are all happening. All of your past lives, all of your future lives are all happening at the exact same time. And you're in every one of those bodies at the exact same time. And moreover, you're also the creator. And the creator is in everybody's body all at the same time, and everything all at the same time. So you have to realize all of those things, those factors factor in. That'll blow your mind just trying to wrap your head around that expansion of your consciousness.
Question 105.17. Questioner, as an example, I would like to take the distortion of a disease or bodily malfunction prior to the veil and compare it to that after the veil. Let us assume that the conditions that Jim experienced with respect to his kidney malfunction had been an experience that occurred prior to the veil. Would this experience have occurred prior to the veil? Would it have been different? And if so, how? Answer, I am Ra. The anger of separation is impossible without the veil. The lack of awareness of the body's need for liquid is unlikely without the veil. The decision to contemplate perfection in discipline is quite improbable without the veil. Question 105.18. Questioner, I would like to examine a sample, shall we say, bodily distortion prior to the veil and how it would affect the mind. Could Ra give an example of that, please? Answer, I am Ra. This general area has been covered. We shall recapitulate here. The patterns of illness, diseases, and death are a benignant domain * within the plan of incarnational experience. As such, some healing would occur by decision of mind, body, spirits, and incarnations were experienced with the normal ending of illness to death, accepted as such, since without the veil it is clear that the mind, body, spirit continues. Thusly, the experiences, both good and bad, or joyful and sad, of the mind, body, spirit before veiling would be pale, without vibrancy or the keen edge of interest that such brings in the post-veiling mind, body, spirit complex.
Right?
Asterisk domain in
So you have to realize that when people have asked the question, why the veiling? What did that do that was so important? This right here, that part of that paragraph explains that in a lot of details as to the contrast and why that's important, right? So let me reread that to you. This general area has been covered, right? We shall recapitulate here. Okay, the patterns of illness, disease, and death, right? So let's go beyond that, right? Let's go to the meat of the bones, right? As such, some healing would occur by decision of the mind, body, and spirit, and incarnations were experienced with the normal ending of illness and death, meaning that many things were experienced and many things were gained from the normal ending in illness or death, except as such, since without the veil, it is clear that the mind, body, spirit continues. So once you become unveiled and you realize, I am not the thinking mind and I am not the pain body, then you realize at that point, I continue. Or if you don't achieve that place when you die for whatever reason, you then realize without the body that you do continue. So thusly, to continue with what Ra is saying here, thusly the experience, both good and bad, or joyful and sad, of the mind, body, spirit before the veiling would be pale, without the vibrancy or the keen edge of the interest of such veiling. Do you see the post-veiling mind, body, spirit complex? So because of the veiling, there's a stark contrast to what goes on beyond the veiling, because you have no concept of it. So what the creator found was that when everybody was unveiled, that because they were unveiled, they knew they were immortal, and they knew that nothing could happen to them. They knew that none of it mattered and it wasn't important. So truly living life was not effective at all, because people knew that they were forever. They knew they were part of the creator. They knew that they were immortal, and therefore physical life didn't mean anything to anybody, and they didn't care. Once you become veiled, this place is designed to make you believe that it's real, and fear creeps in because chaos and fear was added. You're afraid, you're scared for your life because you think that this is all that there is, and you fight harder to live, to love, to survive, to eat, to everything that you do has a greater passion. They talked about that in Fight Club when they caught that guy, when they went into the liquor store or whatever that place was, and pulled the gun out on the guy and took him out back and robbed him, and his name was Jay Hardcastle or something like that, and they were pulled a gun on him, and they were saying, why should I not kill you? And he's like, because I want to be a veterinarian. And why aren't you a veterinarian? Why are you working at this stupid establishment? I don't know, because I'm stupid. I don't know. Well, tomorrow you're gonna go back to veterinarian school, and you're gonna finish that. And Edward Norton's character said, why did you do that? And he said, because tomorrow that guy's life is going to be completely different, because he survived this moment. He's going to wake up and he's going to be alive for the very first time, and he's going to be happy and enjoy it. And he's going to go on with his life and make something better of himself because of what I did here that scared him into that. And because of that, he's now going to enjoy his life. He's going to have a better life, and he's not going to be wasting his life working in a liquor store and waiting for somebody to actually rob him and kill him. So because of that, he was veiled perpetually, or figuratively or literally veiled, didn't understand what life was about. And that life ending event that he thought was going to happen, threatening his life, that he was going to be murdered, made him afraid and heightened his awareness. Excuse me. Heightened his awareness, and in that scenario, he was scared to death. And when he was able to walk away, that near-death experience is going to change him for the rest of his life. Now he's going to see the world in a completely different light. And here, this is what Ra is explaining, that before the veiling, everybody, like I just said, everybody knew who they were and nothing meant anything to them. And then when the veiling hit, life is now important. Mortal life is now important. I mean something. I am worth something. I'm self-aware. I think, therefore I am. I do not want to die because this is all there is, because that's what you're told. That's what you believe. That's what this place teaches you. So then when all of that is said and done and you do die, you appreciate the life you had more than you did when you knew already that you were this thing, that you were the creator, that you were a part of this creation, because now you didn't know and you lived life like it was your last day. And then we become complacent when we're down here, and it takes an event that is a near-death experience. And that's why they use the vernacular. You just had a near-life experience in Fight Club, not a near-death experience, because they were trying to get that point across, that you're not truly living until you understand how close you can be or are to death. So it takes these moments when we almost die to make us appreciate the life that we had and the people around us in our life in general. And these things happen to us. And then when you have a car accident or somebody shoots you or threatens you or whatever, and you almost die and you go, fuck, I should have died just then. It's going to change your life. You're going to go into a kind of shock that is a spiritual shock of, I should have, could have, would have just died right then, but I didn't. Why? I don't know, but I'm alive now. And you feel that way. And that wears off after a while when the matrix grabs you again. That euphoric effect will wear off. And some people learn from that and they say, no, I'm going to make this change in my life and not be that way. And it usually takes some event like that to rattle people. Even in life, it takes something like that to rattle people. That's why later in life, people become more aware, because as you get older and you've been beating up your body your whole life, it starts to break down on you. And then when you realize, oh crap, I'm old and my body's falling apart, I might be dying, then you start fighting for your life more than you have all of your life that you took for granted. You start fighting for that life. That's also why so many people, when they get into their 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, when they're still around, they live for the now, for the moments, because they know they're getting close to the end of their life and they've done what they did in their life and they're still alive and they're still taking care of themselves, but they're doing things they wish they had done when they were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s. Now they're living for the now in the moment, and they're very carefree in the way they live. And people are like, oh, you shouldn't be like that because you could die. And sometimes they take chances and jump out of planes at 80 and 90 and 100 years of age. They never did it when they're younger life. Why? Because now they're living in that moment, and they're living moment by moment, and they're truly living in life instead of fighting against life or just existing. They're actually living. And the whole purpose of what we're doing here is to try and get ourselves into that place at a younger age instead of when it just happens there. But it's okay as long as it does happen. So we have to pay attention to what's going on, but we also have to realize that this place is there to trap us on purpose so that we appreciate. You can't have life unless you understand death. You can't have death unless you understand what life is. You have to have that contrast. You can't have happiness and truly know what happiness is until you have sadness and you're crying and your heart is broken. So you have to have that strife to appreciate the non-strife. You have to have death so you can appreciate life. You have to have evil so you can appreciate no evil being around. Those are a perfect dance. It's a perfect harmonic balance. The yin and the yang is a perfect dance in the universe right now that the creator has created. When you're in it, you don't think that. When it's happening to you and you think that this place is happening to you, you don't think that. When you realize this isn't happening to you, it's happening for you, you change your mindset about this place and what you think about it. And once you realize this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me, and what that entails, then you start to realize how beautiful this place actually is. Okay? So you have to get to that place. Until you actually organically get to that place on your own, I can tell you about it and you won't actually get it until it happens to you. And that's what Ra is talking about here, right? Cassie said, very true, brother. The veiling makes things more focused on what's important to your own soul when you see the truth. When you realize that veil, that it lives slightly, then you realize how much you didn't know when you were veiled, and life becomes very important to you. She goes on to say, that's exactly why I had to quit my bad habits. My body was speaking to me that it was time. Health issues showing me I want to know more. I want to be more connected and truly live, in capital letters, fully, right? So for the second half of my life, right? That's why Marie Osmond's mother said to her, we spend the second half of our life repairing all the damage that they did to us in the first half, including what we did to ourselves. I added that little part at the end, but that's what she meant by that. So you have to realize that once you make that point in your life where you're going to change your life for the better, and you start giving up those things and eating better and exercising and doing those things, your life changes exponentially faster because you're more in tune. You're tuning your physical body, you're tuning your spiritual body, you're tuning your ego, you're tuning everything. And when all of those things start working together, all of your chakras are working, all of your physical body's working properly, you're eating properly, you're exercising properly, you're getting proper sleep. Psychologically, you're doing better because your physical body's doing better, and spiritually you're doing better because everything is doing better. All of that is the totality. And it starts to unveil you. And as you start to unveil and you see the universe for what it truly is, you see reality for what it truly is, you then make those decisions in a different way. And you start, really looking at life and the universe in a different mindset. And you go, wow, this is actually better than I thought it was. It's not so hard. I don't have to fight against it. I have to run with it instead of trying to swim upstream. It's okay to swim side to side or go with the flow, when you want to, knowing that you can swim upstream when you want to. You have to realize you have that freedom to do that stuff, right? So it's hard, and each individual has to organically find that moment, that aha moment, like Cassie was saying, that one moment where you go, oh, wow, I get it for the first time. All right, let's continue.
Law, lands held in one's own power, a manor house and the adjoining lands in the immediate use and occupation of the owner of the estate, the grounds belonging to any residence or any landed estate, any region over which sovereignty is exercised, domain. Question 105.19. Questioner, at the end of an incarnation, before veiling, did the entity appear physically to have age-like entities at the end of their incarnation in our present illusion? Did the significator look like that? Answer, I am Ra. The significator of mind, body, or spirit is a portion of the archetypical mind and looks as each envisioned such to appear. The body of mind, body, spirits before veiling showed all the signs of aging which acquaint you now with the process leading to the removal from third density incarnation of the mind, body, spirit complex. It is well to recall that the difference betwixt mind, body, spirits and mind, body, spirit complexes is a forgetting within the deeper mind.
Right, because the veiling is there. So the mind, body, spirit, and the mind, body, spirit complex, the complex is the more of the totality. So once you realize the contrast between the mind, body, and spirit in the mind, body, spirit complex is the veiling. Without the veiling, you realize the complex or the totality. With the veiling, you start to realize mind, body, spirit. That's 3D moving into 4D. Once you start moving into 5D, you start realizing the higher realm of that. But that's all still in 3D. I don't want to get involved in too much of that to freak people out, because everyone's like, we're in 12D already, and they don't know what they're talking about. But you have to. The difference between the two is the mind, body, spirit is 4D. And you don't realize the totality of it. The mind, body, spirit complexes, when you hit the mind, body, spirit complex, that is the realization from a higher perspective without the veiling. That's the realization of the oneness that you have, not just with yourself, but with the universe, with nature, and with the one true creator, and that your higher self is in a different place. And that's the place that is anchored halfway through the sixth dimension or density. And that is just the first dimensional anchor. And then there's another one that's higher than that before you get back to the creator. So And as you expand to that, you become one with more beingness as you become a totality. So you're not just the complex, you become the totality, which is like a hive mind complex, moving into a larger state of, galaxy, and then to the universe, and then back to the creator. All right, let's continue here.
Physical appearances and surface and instinctual activities are much the same. Question 105.20. Questioner: then I was wondering what was the root reason for the change in appearance that we see as the aging process. I am trying to uncover the basic philosophical premise here, but I may be shooting in the dark and not questioning on it correctly. I am trying to get at the reason behind the design in this change in appearance, when it seems to me that it would be just as possible for the mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, spirit complex to look the same throughout an incarnation. Could Ra explain the reason for this change? Answer: I am Ra. When the discipline of the personality has led the mind, body, spirit complex into the fifth and especially the sixth level of study, it is no longer necessary to build destruction of the physical vehicle into its design, for the spirit complex is so experienced as a shuttle that it is aware when the appropriate degree of intensity of learning and increment of lesson have been achieved. Within third density, not to build into the physical vehicle its ending would be counterproductive to the mind, body, spirit complexes therein residing, for within the illusion it seems more lovely to be within the illusion than to drop the garment which has carried the mind, body, spirit complex and move on.
Right, so here you're talking about the same thing, right? When the discipline of the personality has led to the mind, body, spirit complex into the fifth, and especially into the sixth level of study, is in no longer necessary to build destruction of the physical vehicle into its design. For the spirit complex is so experienced as a shuttle that it is aware that the appropriate degree of intensity of learning and increments of lesson have been achieved within the third density, not to build into the physical vehicle. Its ending would be counterproductive to the mind, body, spirit complex therein residing. For within the illusion, it seems more lovely to be within the illusion than to drop the garment which has carried the mind, body, spirit complex and move on. So talking about the veiling, talking about that whole entire intensity, once you learn the lessons down here and see it from that overview, that perspective of the higher density, and see the perfectness of this dance that is this yin yang, that is this mind, body, spirit complex totality, that what you gain here is completely a bazillion fold higher in vibration and wisdom than you could ever fathom when you're in it, but you don't know it. That's why the saying that when you're pushing a rock uphill, it's only at the top when you can appreciate the journey, because you can't see anything. You're in it and you're in the middle of it and you're pushing that rock uphill, and you know that if you stop to look around, that you're not going to be able to get the rock going again, or it's going to overwhelm you and roll you back down to the bottom of the hill. So you need to keep pressing forward till you get to the top. And once you get to that precipice and you hit that cresting of the crown, and you know that the rock is no longer a weight to you and you can stop, then you look around and see what the journey was. And then you appreciate the journey, and you can take as much time at that point to appreciate the journey before you move on.
Question 105.21. Questioner: I see, then, that it is, shall we say, when an individual reaches a very old age, it becomes apparent to him in third density that he is worn out. Therefore, he is not attached to this vehicle as firmly as he would be with a good-looking, well-functioning one. After the veil, the body is definitely an athana for the mind. Prior to the veiling, did the body serve as an athana for the mind at all? Answer: I am Ra. Yes. You may ask one more full query. Question 105.22. Questioner: I believe that I should ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact, since in the last session I was not able to get that question in. Answer: I am Ra. We find the weariness of the group well balanced by its harmony. That weariness shall continue in any future circumstance during your incarnations. Therefore look to your love and thanksgiving for each other and join always in fellowship, correcting each broken strand of that affection with patience, comfort, and quietness. We find all meticulously observed in the alignments and give you these words only as reminder. All that can be done for the instrument seems done with an whole heart, and the instrument itself is working in the indigo ray with perseverance. We have previously mentioned some temporary measures for the instrument. If these are adopted, additional liquids shall be imbibed by the instrument and by the questioner, whose bond with the instrument is such that each difficulty for one is the same in sympathy for the other. I am Ra. I leave you rejoicing merrily in the love and the light, the power and the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai.
Yeah, Cassie said, laugh out loud, how perfect. Laugh out loud, no more destroying the physical body. That's the truth of it. Your physical body starts to wane, and you have a spiritual body that you enter into, so you don't have to
I am
destroy
Ra.
the physical anymore.
I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now.
However, there is a spiritual death and rebirth that you go through, but I'm not going to get involved in that because the people of this planet are nowhere near ready for that one because they're too locked into the physical here. But there is a spiritual death and resurrection that you go through that is different from the physical body, but in a sense for the spirit, but it's not winking out like you would to where you die here and then you're somewhere else. It's not like that. You don't have a shedding of anything there except for past things as you change. So I'm not going to get involved in all of that right now. The people of this planet will figure that out in the next 50 or so years, maybe before. We're looking at trying to get it to a concept here around the year 2050 or maybe before. The reason that I can actually talk about it right now that I have out loud is a good indication that it's coming quicker because I could mention it live on the air right now. So that's actually something that's a good thing. Okay, so session 106, March 15th, 1984. This is the last session of the Law of One. Let's continue here.
Question 106.1. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. The parameters of this instrument are marginal, both physically and mental-emotionally. The vital energy of this entity is biased towards strength-weakness. Question 106.2. Questioner, what would the instrument do to make the marginal condition much better? Answer, I am Ra. The instrument is proceeding through a portion of the incarnational experience during which the potential for mortal distortion of the left renal system is great. Less important, but adding to the marginality of distortion towards viability, are severe allergic reactions and the energizing of this and other distortions towards weakness strength. The mental-emotional complex is engaged in what may best be termed inappropriate compassion. Question 106.3. Questioner, would Ra recommend the steps which we might take to alleviate or reverse the conditions of which you just spoke? Answer, I am Ra. We can do this. The renal distortions are subject to affirmations. The entity, at present, beginning what may be called initiation, is releasing toxins and, therefore, larger amounts of liquids to aid in the dilution of these toxins is helpful. The allergies are already being largely controlled by affirmation and the near-constant aid of the healer known as Bob. Further aid may be achieved by the relocation of dwelling and future vigilance against humidity exceeding the healthful amount in the atmosphere breathed. The mental-emotional distortions are somewhat less easily lessened. However, the questioner and instrument together shall find it possible to do such a working. Question 106.4. Questioner, how serious or critical is this renal problem? Is drinking liquids the only thing she can do for that, or is there something else? Answer, I am Ra. Note the interrelationship of mind and body complexes. This is one example of such interweaving of the design of catalyst and experience. The period of renal delicacy is serious, but only potentially. Should the instrument desire to leave this incarnational experience, the natural and non-energized opportunity to do so has been inbuilt just as the period during which the same entity did, in fact, leave the incarnational experience and then returned by choice was inlaid. However, the desire to leave and be no more a portion of this particular experiential nexus canon has been energized. This is a point for the instrument to ponder and an appropriate point for the support group to be watchful in regards to care for the instrument. So are mind and body plaited up as the tresses of hair of a maiden. The nature of this entity is gay and sociable, so that it is fed by those things we have mentioned previously, the varieties of experience with other selves and other locations and events being helpful, as well as the experience of worship and the singing, especially of sacred music. This entity chose to enter a worshipful situation with a martyr's role when first in this geographical location. Therefore, the feeding by worship has taken place only partially. Similarly, the musical activities, though enjoyable and, therefore, of a feeding nature, have not included the aspect of praise to the Creator. The instrument is in a state of relative hunger for those spiritual homes which it gave up when it felt a call to martyrdom and turned from the planned worship at the location you call the Cathedral of St. Philip. This too shall be healed gradually due to the proposed alteration in location of this group. Question 106.5. Questioner: then as I understand it, the best thing for us to do is to advise the instrument to drink more liquid. I think water would be best. We will, of course, move. We could move her out of here immediately, tomorrow say, if necessary. Would this be considerably better than waiting 2 to 3 weeks for the allergies and everything else? Answer: I am Ra. Such decisions are a matter for free will choice. Be aware of the strength of the group harmony. Question 106.6. Questioner: is there anything, with respect to the present spiritual or metaphysical condition or physical condition of this Hobbs Park Roadhouse that Ra could tell us about that would be deleterious to the instrument's health? Answer: I am Ra. We may speak to this subject only to know that there are mechanical electrical devices which control humidity. The basement level is one location, the nature of which is much like that which you have experienced at the basement level of your previous domicile. Less humid conditions would remove the opportunity for the growth of those spores to which the instrument has sensitivity. The upper portions of the domicile are almost, in every case, at acceptable levels of humidity. Question 106.7. Questioner: how about the metaphysical quality of the house? Could Ra appraise that, please? Answer: I am Ra. This location is greatly distorted. We find an acceptable description of this location's quality to elude us without recourse to hackneyed words. Forgive our limitations of expression. The domicile and its rear aspect, especially, is blessed, and angelic presences have been invoked for some of your time past. Question 106.8. Questioner: I'm not sure that I understand what Ra means by that. I'm not sure if the place is metaphysically extremely good or extremely negative. Could Ra clear that up, please? Answer: I am Ra. We intended to stress the metaphysical excellence of the proposed location. The emblements of such preparation may well be appreciated by this group. Question 106.9. Questioner: would the cleansing by salt and water be necessary for this location then? Or would it be recommended? Answer: I am Ra. There is the recommended metaphysical cleansing as in any relocation. No matter how fine the instrument, the tuning still is recommended between each concert or working. Question.
Right, so you have to remember that in everything that you do. That part right there is very important for the longevity of anything, right? There is recommendation, there's a recommended metaphysical cleansing, as in any relocation, no matter how fine the instrument, the tuning still is recommended between each concert or working. So not just your personal self, but the space that you are working in. You should always cleanse and take care of things like, daily. You should be doing that, and yourself. You should always be doing that, not just doing it once in a while. You should always be paying attention to everything that you have going on around you. When you go out into the world, you pick up energy. You pick up your light attracts negative energy and positive energy. So, just like when you're out walking around, you don't know what you step on. I say that as an example all the time. You have people that they don't want you to walk in their house with your shoes on. You got to take your shoes off and leave them outside. Why? because they don't want all the germs and the dirt that you mucked around, that you walked on. Well, you're doing the same thing with your physical body and your soul, your spirit. You're walking around amongst all this energy that's nasty, icky, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, and some of it's just nasty, and you don't know what you're picking up, and you're having that on you, and it's still stuck to you, and it has changed you, and it's affecting you, and you're unaware of it. You don't know what's going on, and you come in from outside in the world, and you're like, oh my God, it was crazy out there, and this guy cut me off, and this other one did this, and that was happening, and this was happening, and you don't realize all of that is negative energy that is now in you, on you, and stuck to you, and you're emulating all of that craziness until you can get it off of you and relax and go, oh man, I need to just sit down and whatever, have a drink, smoke a cigarette, or I need to smoke a bowl, or I just need to sit down and relax for a minute. And then you start grounding yourself. So we do it naturally. We just don't realize that we're doing it. But you should be more aware of that and then purposely try to do that and cleanse yourself. I used to do that when I would go to work. I would come home, and sometimes I would eat before I got in the shower because I didn't want to go and take a shower and get on clean clothes and then eat something and get something all over my clothes. Since my clothes were going to go in the dirty wall anyway because I was wearing them all day, I would eat food, then go and take a shower. But man, once I took it while I was in the shower, I would cleanse and clean, and then I would sage myself or use incense on myself, and then get on some comfy, cozy clothes and leave all of that negative stuff out in the world and start that's not who I am. That's what I do. And you have to get into that mindset about yourself. That's not who I am. It's what I do. And don't bring any of those problems home. Right. How do you cleanse Penny says, how do you cleanse your house if you cannot burn anything in your home? Then, okay, if you can't burn anything and you can't use smoke, then you have to walk the house. You have to do it with your energy, or you have to do it by calling in energy. If you don't have confidence in yourself to do it with your energy, you call in energy, your guides, your archangels, whoever it is that you trust that you've worked with before to help you cleanse a place. That's how you would do it. I walk it. I don't have to have smoke, but smoke always helps. But I walk a house on my own. I've had people in my presence when I've done it. And some people, when I've gone to their home and I have done it, astrally moving there, astral projecting myself there, and they can sense it if they have that sort of stuff. But Cassie's gone to it as well. You can use salt. You can use or bubble the house. You can, that's with your energy. You can use garlic. You can use these other physical traits, physical things that are non-smoke that you can use to cleanse your house. Open up the house, let it air it out, clean out all the dust and clean and wash everything. Right. You can then learn how to cleanse a house by doing that with smells of garlic, or by cooking certain foods, by putting salt around the threshold of the house or around your house on the outside completely, or crossing the thresholds where the energy could get in, chase the energy out, and then ward that off. That's why they call that a ward that off. And you don't have to use smoke. You don't have to cast a spell, but you can do those things and cleanse yourself, cleanse your house, by energy and by these other things. There's other things that you can do that are not incense. If you can't breathe that, or someone in your house can't breathe that stuff you can do it in many other ways. You can look those up online, or you could ask myself or someone else that does that to help you with that specifically for your location or your circumstances. But there are many things, and that's where Rob was talking about that earlier with the hanging of the garlic and using the garlic to walk around. You get the garlic on the string, where they have several buds of garlic tied up on a string. You can take that and wave that as well. You can do, if you do like, what is it? Is it a lemon? Yeah. You take a lemon and you cut it open. I think it's a lemon. And you cut it open, and that stuff draws all bacteria to it. There's different fruits and vegetables that do that will draw negative energy in, and then you remove it from your house. You do that when people are sick with different things, where you cut them in half and you hold them there and you have them there. So you can do that. You can call in energies, like I said, higher self, guides, archangels, whatever, You can call for assistance from other people to have them cleanse the place for you. Some people would, when they buy a house, they would have a priest come and bless the house. That's basically doing the same thing. The priest is going and changing the energy and chasing away all negative, evil energy out of the house that might be attached to the house, and then blessing the house to keep that in. That's just the same thing. So if you grow garlic, I love garlic too. I have garlic sitting over here, a couple buds right now on my countertop. I love garlic. I put it on just about anything. I love garlic. But that's good. If it kills a vampire, it kills the devil. It kills negative energy, right? So you can look into those things, different things that you can do that have no smoke, so you can accommodate that. To this day, when you get to a certain point, you will do it with your own energy, and I do that. I'll walk a place. I'll go, give me a second, and I'll just walk a place, close my eyes, and I'm up moving around with my own energy, and I'm creating an energy bubble, and I'm literally pushing everything out with my physical or non-physical body. Walk in the house, you can do that with your physical body as well, and you push all that stuff out of the house, and then set that bubble around the house and keep it up. You don't have to, worry about it dissipating and recharging. Just, add to it every now and then to make sure nothing in any way was brought back in. You know what I mean? So I hope that helps. Okay, let's continue here.
Question 106.10. Questioner, if the instrument stays out of the basement, do you think that the humidity and the physical conditions will be good for the instrument then? Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 106.11. Questioner, we must do something about the humidity in the whole house then to make it good for the instrument. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 106.12. Questioner, I want to come back to a couple of points here, but I want to get him a question about myself. It seems to be critical at this point. Could Ra tell me what is physically wrong with me, what's causing it, and what I could do to alleviate it?
So, yeah, you just have to have the confidence, Penny. Penny said, I do bubble my house. I'm just not always sure it is working. Well, that doubt is what's causing that. You have to know that. I've trained people on this. I've trained several people that are psychics to go and work with ghost hunting crews. And they're like, what do I do if I come in contact with this? I'm afraid. And I teach them, you have to stop being afraid. You have to have the confidence that you are the one that's in charge. You're alive. They're not. You create energy. They don't. They're disembodied, and they don't even know they're dead. So they're not even awake. So they're stuck in that limbo where they're either evil, in which case they're awake enough to know that they're evil and that they're causing a problem, or they're a disembodied spirit who thinks they're still alive. They don't know they're dead and they're confused. So they don't have the creative ability. They don't have that because they're not self-aware enough to know those things. You're the one that's in charge. When you tell someone to get out, they have to get out. They cannot stop. Even when they try to make you believe this is my house and I'm evil and I will possess you, they can't. They don't have the ability to do that, or they already would have done it. So they don't have that ability, and you have to have that knowledge and confidence within yourself that when what I say is fucking goes. When I say everybody out of the pool, you get out of the pool. So when I say everybody out of this house and all negative energy has to get out of this house, it cannot stay here because I am repelling it. And that's what Ra is showing you when you say, I greet you with the love and the light of the infinite creator. When they say, how is it that we can combat this evil entity that's trying to kill Carla? You greet it with the love and the light of the infinite creator. It's a wall. It's a brick wall that cannot be penetrated by any evil strength whatsoever, because they do not have the ability to do so. They were never created with the ability to defeat the creator of the universe, period, no matter what they say to you. So the same thing goes for all evil people. They only have the power that you give them over you. You have to give up with your free will the power to any entity, whether they're in a human body or not in a human body. The only thing they can do then is to overpower you in the physical and do physical damage to your physical body to get you to submit. That is all they have. They don't have any way of torturing your soul. They have to torture your physical body and your mind. Okay? So you have to realize that. So you always have to remember, you're the badass. You're the one that's doing everything, creating everything, not the evil energy. So when you say get out, they have to get out. And if they don't want to get out, you get up and remove them, just like you do with a child when you say stop doing that. And the child looks at you and continues to do it. What do? Eventually, you get up and take that thing from the child. I told you not to do that. You will not. And then all of a sudden they start crying. Why? Because now they realize that they don't have the power over you anymore, and that they're not as strong as they thought they were, because you as the adult went over and took that thing from them and said, now you're in trouble, and now you're going to go over here and put your nose into that corner, and you're going to sit there until I tell you can come out. And if you come out anytime sooner, then I'm going to whoop your ass. And you have to always do what you said you were going to do, or they're going to question that every time, knowing that you're not going to do it and they're not going to believe you, and they'll always do whatever they tell you. So don't write a check that you can't cash. Don't say you're going to harm a child if you don't want to. Don't ever do that. Use something else so you don't have to say, I'm going to beat your ass, and then not do it, because you don't have it within you to do so. You see my point? Let's continue.
Answer, I am Ra. The questioner is one also in the midst of further initiation.
See, so here Dawn is starting to wonder there's something physically wrong with him, and he's asking Ra for a confirmation as to what's going on with him. And here's where Ra's trying to help him with that. It turned out that he had colon cancer and he was dying, but he was unaware of it at this moment. And that's why there's not another session after this, because he ended up dying. He ended up killing himself in that house they just moved to eventually, not too long after this session, as a matter of fact.
During this space-time, the possibility for mental emotional distortion approaching that which causes the entity to become dysfunctional is marked. Further, the yellow ray, chemical vehicle of the questioner, is aging and has more difficulty in the absorption of needed minerals such as iron and other substances such as propane, potassium, and calcium. At the same time, the body of yellow ray begins to have more difficulty eliminating trace elements such as aluminum. The energizing effect has occurred in the colon of the questioner, and the distortions in that area are increasingly substantial. Lastly, there is a small area of infection in the mouth of the questioner which needs attention.
See, so the colon was mentioned there, and back then in the 1980s, aluminum and the collection of aluminum in different places in our body that were causing damage. And back then in the 1980s, specifically in 1983 when this was being done, that people would laugh at you if you said that. And now come forward, to 2025, and now they're literally aware that in dementia and Alzheimer's, that they don't know exactly what causes it, but they know that one of the biggest contributing factors is aluminum collecting in the brain, shorting out the brain itself, and your mind trying to think, and that your brain trying to function, which functions on electromagnetic wave form through your endocrine system, through that avenues, become shorted out because of the aluminum being conductive. It draws the electricity out of those pathways and into the aluminum, and then out of the aluminum, and it actually starts doing damage to the brain itself, the brain tissue, because you're having an electrical storm in your brain, which is what you feel when you have a headache, which is what you feel when you have a migraine. It's an electrical storm in your brain. So when you have too much aluminum collecting in your brain, then it shorts out the brain, and the brain starts frying itself, just like if you have a heartbeat that's going awry, and your heart, when you have what is called a heart attack, is when the electrical impulse to tell your heart to beat is beating at the wrong time, and the electrical impulse itself is actually going into the meat of the heart and doing damage to the flesh. So it's an electrical storm that you're having in your heart. The same thing happens in your brain when you have a stroke, or when you have too much aluminum in there, and it starts to cook your brain from the inside out. And that causes obviously brain damage, which causes cognitive impairment and other physical impairments when your body doesn't know how to take care of itself anymore because of that shorting out. But in his case, it was happening in his colon, and the colon was mentioned here. And it turned out that he did end up having colon cancer. So now we'll move into part 2 of the Law of One, session 106. Right after.
Podbean, your...
Here we go.
Question 106.13. Questioner, could Ra recommend what I should do to improve my state of health? Answer, I am Ra. We tread most close to the law of confusion in this instance, but feel the appropriateness of speaking due to potentially fatal results for the instrument. We pause to give the questioner and the scribe a few moments of space-time to aid us by stepping away from those distortions which cause us to invoke the law of confusion. This would be helpful. A few moments pause. I am Ra. We appreciate your attempts. Even confusion on your behalf is helpful. The questioner has, in the recent past, allowed a complete transfer of mental emotional pain from the questioner to the instrument. The key to this deleterious working was when the instrument said words to the effect of the meaning that it would be the questioner and be the strong one. The questioner could be as the instrument, small and foolish. The questioner, in full ignorance of the firm intent of the instrument and not grasping the possibility of any such energy transfer, agreed. These two entities have been as one for a timeless period and have manifested this in your space-time. Thusly, the deleterious working occurred. By agreement in care and caution it may be undone. We urge the attention to thanksgiving and harmony on the part of the questioner.
Penny asked the question, how do we get the aluminum out of our bodies? Out of your brain, you have to remove the excess plaque that builds up in your brain. Like you have plaque on your teeth, there's a plaque in your brain that builds up and the aluminum gets caught in that plaque and it can't release. So how you get rid of that is, first of all, turmeric, however you say that word, turmeric with black pepper in it, that helps to alleviate that. But more importantly, 8 hours sleep, minimum of 8 hours sleep a night, the proper rest without going to sleep on alcohol or crappy food. Get the sugars out of your body, get the excess salt out of your body, start eating healthy, making sure that you are eating healthy helps. Getting the proper rest is vital, because when you get 8 hours of sleep, the brain, the body naturally heals itself, and the body naturally clears out a lot of excess plaque out of the brain during that time. But it only occurs when you have had 8 hours of sleep. So if you're one of those people that only sleeps 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day, that means that your body is not cleaning that plaque out, and that it makes you a higher risk for that sort of stuff, right? Reese is saying CBD and turmeric helps release, let me put that up on the screen, helps release it from the neurons that then rest and exercise. So you see, so CBDs with turmeric, I like that, with turmeric, and making sure with rest and exercise, it'll clear out those neurons of all the excess aluminum in your brain. So you also have to lower the amount of aluminum that you're putting into your body. So look at your deodorant that you're using or your antiperspirant and see if it has any aluminum in it at all. Aluminum sulfate, aluminum phosphate, any aluminum, stop using that and go to a non-aluminum. So you have to find everything that you're using, makeups, everything that you're using, and see if there's any aluminum, anything. If it has the word aluminium, if you're a European, that's just the way that we say it in America. We say aluminum instead of aluminium. And detox, right? And here's Cassie saying that detox, right? Detox on a cellular level. So you have to detox your body. And the only way that you can do that is eating right, sleeping right, exercising right, putting the right things in your body to help your body, taking away the bad foods that you're eating that is causing inflammation and causing your body to absorb and hold on to things. Salts and sugars cause your body to inflame itself, right? So when you do that, it's trying to hold on to water because it's trying to get these toxins out. So if you lower the toxins that are in your body and give your body good fuel by eating good foods, exercising right, sleeping right, then you're taking things to help detox, which we know, like if you're trying to detox like your any part of your body, there's detox things you can take that are organic things that are nuts and berries and things like that you can take to cleanse these stuff out of your body. You have to treat your body like a temple and do it. Clean your house, clean your body, clean your mind, free your mind and your ass will follow. That's a famous song from the 80s, right? Free your mind and the rest will follow. So you have to free your mind, free your soul, free your physical body. And then when you balance all of that stuff and balance your chakras, you'll find that your body works better, you age slower, you live longer, all of those things. But that's a lifestyle. You have to get rid of all the crap and all of the processed foods and all of the things that are bad for you that you've been consuming, especially the sugars and the salts and the processed foods. Get those out of your life, and you'll find that you're going to feel better, have better energy, cook for yourself instead of eating fast foods and processed crap at restaurants. You're going to find that the ascension foods are essential. The ascension foods are essential, and they'll help you detox yourself, your mind, body, and your soul. Let's continue here.
We may affirm the previous recommendation in general of the skills and the purity of intention of the one known as Bob, and may note the sympathetic illness which has occurred due to the instrument's sensitivities. Lastly, we may note that to the one known as Peter several aspects of the distortions experienced by the questioner, the instrument, and the scribe may be quite apparent and rather simply traduced to lesser distortions. Question 106.14. Questioner: what is Peter's last name? I am not familiar with who he is. Answer: I am Ra, the name by which this entity chooses to be known as Inman. Question 106.15. Questioner: does Ra think that surgery in my case would be of any help? Answer: I am Ra. We assume you speak of the colonic indisposition and its potential aid by your Kaya organs. Is this correct? Question 106.16. Questioner: yes. Ra, again, I am Ra. Please blow across the face and heart of the instrument. This was done as directed. I am Ra. We shall continue. The atmosphere has been meticulously prepared. However, there are those elements which cause difficulty to the instrument, the neurasthenia of the right side of the face being added to other arthritically energized pain flares. Such an operation would be of aid in the event that the entity chose this physical cleansing as an event which collaborated with changes in the mental, emotional, and physical orientations of the entity. Without the latter choice, the distortion would recur. Question 106.17. Questioner: now, going back to summarizing, what we can do for the instrument is through praise and thanksgiving. Is that all that we can do other than advising her to drink a considerable amount of liquid and moving her into a better atmosphere? Am I correct on that? Answer: I am Ra. We examine the statement and find two items missing, one important relative to the other. The chief addition is the grasping of the entity's nature. The less important is, for little it may seem to be, perhaps helpful, that as the entity absorbs much medication and finds it useful to feed itself when these substances are ingested. The substitution of substances such as fruit juice for the cookie is recommended, and, further, the ingestion of substances containing sucrose which are not liquid is not recommended within 4 of your hours before the sleeping period. Question 106.18. Questioner: with my experience with the dehumidifiers, I think that it will probably be impossible to lower the humidity in that house much. We can try that, and probably if we do move in there, we will have to move out very shortly. Is there anything else that needs to be done to complete the healing of Jim's kidney problem? Answer: I am Ra. If it be realized that the condition shall linger in potential for some months after the surcease of all medication, then care will be taken and all will continue well. We may know that, for the purposes you intend, the location, Hobbs Park Road, whether humid or arid, is uncharacteristically well suited. The aggravated present distortions of the instrument having abated due to lack of acute catalyst, the condition of the location about which the assumption was made is extremely beneficial. Question 106.19. Questioner: then you are saying that the effect of the humidity, we will try to get it as low as possible, is a relatively minor consideration when all of the other factors of the Hobbs Park Road address are taken into consideration. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. Yes. Question 106.20. Questioner: I am quite concerned about the instrument's health at this point. I must ask if there is anything I have failed to consider with respect to the health of the instrument. Is there anything at all that we can do for her to improve her condition other than that which has already been recommended? Answer: I am Ra. All is most wholeheartedly oriented for support here. Perceive the group as here, a location in time-space. Within this true home, keep the light touch. Laugh together, and find joy in and with each other. All else is most fully accomplished or planned for accomplishment. Question 106.21. Questioner, is it as efficacious to cleanse the house with salt and water?
Right, it was in vogue, wasn't it? Yeah, we're trying to figure out. Sorry, guys, I was throwing that up on the screen for you guys to see, but I wasn't talking about it, so I was letting that play. But yeah, I think it was in vogue that sang that back in the day, right? Cassie says in vogue was the first CD I bought. Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, sorry, let's continue here. So now again, they're talking about cleansing the new place that they're moving into, right?
After we move in, as it is before we move in? Answer, I am Ra. In this case, it is not an urgent metaphysical concern as timing would be in a less benign and happy atmosphere. One notes the relative simplicity of accomplishing such prior to occupancy. This is unimportant except as regards the catalyst with which you wish to deal. Question 106.22. Questioner, can you tell me what the instrument's difficulty was with her last whirlpool? Answer, I am Ra. The instrument took on the mental, emotional nature and distortion complex of the questioner as we have previously noted. The instrument has been taking whirling waters at temperatures which are too hot and at rates of vibration which, when compounded by the heat of the swirling waters, bring about the state of light shock as you would call the distortion. The mind complex has inadequate oxygen in this distorted state and is weakened. In this state the instrument, having the questioner's distortion without the questioner's strength of the distortion one might liken to the wearing of armor, began to enter into an acute psychotic episode. When the state of shock was past, the symptoms disappeared. The potential remains as the empathic identity has not been relinquished, and both the questioner and the instrument live as entities in a portion of the mental-emotional complex of the instrument. May we ask for one more full query at this working and remind the instrument that is appropriate to reserve some small portion of energy before a working. Question 106.23. Questioner, I would just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to help Orion to improve the contact, and what would be the soonest that Ra would recommend the next contact? I would certainly appreciate the return of the Golden Hawk. It gave me great comfort. Answer, I am Ra. You have complete freedom to schedule workings. We suggest the nature of all manifestation to be illusory and functional only insofar as the entity turns from shape and shadow to the one. I am Ra. We leave you, my friends, in the love and in the glorious light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Okay, so that is the end of the Law of One. What do you think of that? I'm going to go back over here and pull myself up into full screen here. So that's the end of the Law of One for the second time, people. That's kind of crazy right there. Think about that, right? So Penny says, why doesn't it seem that Ra seems to know that Dawn will end up killing himself to me? He keeps telling him to keep their emotions high and happy because Penny Ra knew that Dawn was dying, but free will held him to not be able to explain that to him. And Dawn was in denial. Dawn was in denial for a long time, and then he eventually. Carla was trying to get him to go to the hospital, and he wouldn't go, and he refused to. So he actually then held himself at gunpoint, and because she called the sheriffs to come and get him and physically take him to the hospital, and he refused to go. He didn't want to go. So he ended up holding himself at a gunpoint for like 3 days in a standoff with the cops. And he walked out on the back porch and shot himself in the head. That happened not too long after this session. It was happening here once Dawn realized what was going on. Cassie said, I've been off for the last few months, Can feel the difference, just ordered some myself. Yes, Cassie's talking about the detox stuff, right? So thank you, Reese. Yeah, Reese has been with me since the first time I did the Law of One back in 2017. all the way up until now, right? That's crazy, bro. So we finished it. So what I'll probably do next week is I thought about doing my book and talking about my book. We will cover that. I don't know if I'm going to start doing that next week or not. But I'm looking at possibly doing the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And maybe some of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I might start with the Book of Truth or get real crazy and go with the Book of Judas. Definitely the Book of Truth. We'll be covering that at some point, but I like the Emerald Tablets, so we might do that. I think I'll start with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and we'll go over those the same way we're doing this. I want to do the Egyptian Book of the Dead too, even though they're the same. But I want to bring the light to that. That's going to be controversial because it's a lot different than people think. The Emerald Tablets, the first parts of the tablets are literally balancing the chakras, and the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and the part of that is the going through the gates of knowing the name of the God that rules the gate to get into heaven is balancing your chakras. So we can talk about that and break that down. I'm writing about that in my next book, so maybe I'll not cover that so much. But it's going to be a lot like that. I'll figure that out between now and next week, and I'll let you guys know. But we're done with the Law of One, so we're going to move on and start talking about other subjects. But I still want to stay within the theme of spirituality and the higher realms of spirituality, and show how theologically how all of the religions are the same, and how that they're actually talking about the ascension and how they're talking about that, including balancing the chakras and how they knew about that. Everyone knew about it. Everyone thinks that it was something that the Hindus invented, with their technology or their name, because they call it the chakras. The Egyptians knew what they were, and they called it a energy wheel or a spindle wheel, which the Hebrew Bible talked about. The prophets seeing a wheel within a wheel that was being presented to them, and the wheel within a wheel is identical to the idea of a spindle wheel that the Hebrews that the Greeks were talking about at the time. So when you hear the description and you think of chakra and what the chakra actually is energetically, not just a symbol and a color, but what it physically is in the body, when you look into what that is, it is exactly what was being described by those people, what they were seeing, and they didn't understand anything about what it was. So people speculated over the years, for thousands of years since they talked about that stuff. And then when people started talking about the chakras, and people like myself trying to just show you that comparison, they were like, that's not what it is, because that's not what a chakra is. And now they're starting to realize that what a chakra actually is exactly what these people knew. So we're just discovering what all of these ancient civilizations knew 12 to 15,000 years ago, some of them 70,000 years old and 100,000 years old. They knew all of this information, and that information was eradicated from our memory, and it was done on purpose. And that's what my current book is about, that I have out from a year ago, which will be a year coming up on the 20th of June, be a year since it published. And that is telling that story that there's a group of people on this earth that purposely eradicated all of that information from right before your eyes. And they tried to get rid of it all completely, trying to erase it from history altogether, even though they couldn't. And it's still right before your eyes, and it's right there. The books they left in all of the Bibles were the ones they didn't even understand enough to get rid of. And they didn't realize that the books they left in were written in a way to tell you the same story as the ones that were bait, that were told easily for the children to understand, that the books they left in were telling the same story, and they were written that way on purpose, because the creator of the universe knew that they were going to do exactly that, to corrupt things. So they made sure that it was written in. That's why when back in 2000, 2001, 2002, up to 2004, when they were really heavily looking into the Bible code, I talk about that all the time, where, there were people that were trying to discredit the Bible code by saying, if I take a book of the same approximate word count as the Hebrew Old Testament, that Talmud, and I use that same skip program, I'll get the same information. out of that book. And this book was, they used Moby Dick as an example because it was almost word for word the same number of words. And they were getting the same informations. And I postulated at the time, thank you for proving that. What if that code is in everything? What if it's part of the spiral? What if it's part of the golden mean ratio? What if it is embedded in everything for us to discover? That it's in our very DNA. I said that back in 2000. It wasn't until later that they realized the number 33 and our DNA and what the reoccurring message was, that they were figuring out that the harmonics of our DNA, the helix, was actually stating, I am God in the flesh. I am God in the flesh. I am God in the flesh, or I am God in the physical, over and over and over. You can look that up on the internet. That's not fringe people saying that. That's mainstream scientists that are discovering that, and this whole place is an illusion. Mainstream science is starting to catch up to what the fringe has been saying for thousands of years. And now they're actually proving it, and they're like, what do we do with this? So it's scaring people, but it's supposed to be, and it's supposed to be scary because change doesn't happen without it. Okay, so I love you guys. Wait a minute. I have this thing still up on the screen here, and I didn't turn that off. I apologize for that. Right at 2.5 years, it's been at least that. I'd have to count. We're on 146 episodes here to get to the end of Law of One. So figure out how many weeks that is, right? 52 weeks in a year. That's almost 3 years. 2 years, 10 months is what it took last time. I think it's about the same this time. So yeah, right. So yeah, you guys are welcome. It's what I do. I'm not going to stop just because we're not talking about the Law of One anymore. I will be moving on, like I said, to the Dead Sea Scrolls, to probably the Emerald Tablets of Thoth first, and moving from there to show people where these messages are in the different things that are out there in the world for people to see that it's there. You just have to have the eyes to see it, right? So you have to know that, right? Yeah, there were 6 books, Joanne, for the Law of One. For 106 sessions, there was 6 books, 7 if you count the first book that Dawn was writing about UFOs and aliens before they started talking to Ra. So that's a lot. And then I did, which I may do again. I did the crash at Roswell in 1947 with Errol, the alien that didn't supposedly exist, who was talking telepathy, was actually talking about the same information that Ra was talking about. And I have done episodes with the EBE, extraterrestrial biological entity called OLI, that the girls, the Podreskas in the Czech Republic, they still send me information from their channeling sessions with OLI. And I've done probably 20 or 30 episodes of that where Oli is talking about the same thing. So around the world throughout time, they've been doing that, the Podreskas, since 94, the LL Research in 1981 to 84, and other people from around the world are getting this information, and it's coming from these higher places. And the one thing that they have in common, or the one thing they have in common, is the spirituality and the one, the use of those words when referring to the Creator. The Greys, when we had the exchange students, that didn't happen according to the federal government officially, but I've read and saw a lot of the videos from the CIA that have been leaked to me over the years. There were either people that were in service to self, and those people were murdering humans and torturing humans and being bad to them, being mean and nasty. But the ones that really drove them crazy the most, the CIA and the military, was the ones that were spiritual, and all they wanted to do was talk about the one true creator of the universe. So this isn't a something that was invented on Earth. This is something that aliens brought here with them. That's a spiritual thing, and that we have this here from different sources that have come from outside of this plane of existence to talk about the one true creator of the universe. So people need to realize that, there's a lot more that's going on. Christy, welcome. There's a lot more that's been going on. It's been a while, right? Christy shows up right when I'm ending the entire Law of One for the second time and letting that go. Bo, there's Bo. Bo's been around too. Bo, you've been around since I was doing the Law of One the first time, brother. You were young then, right? You were in your early 20s, I think, when I first met you, right? So yeah, so you guys go back to when I was doing it the first time when Reese was there doing the Law of One. I did the Law of One in a lower vibration, and then I did the Law of One this time in a very high vibration, right? So, yeah, right, yeah. So you guys need to realize that if you want to hear, if you're brand new to the Law of One, at the very end of the whole thing, I come out and say this, but if you're out there in the world and some of what I've said in this running of the sessions of the Law of One, if it's too much for you this time, go back to the beginning where I did it in a very low vibrational information highway to you in third dimension, trying to get as much of the information to you at a lower level. And then when I did it this time, I was pulling you from that lower level and shooting you straight up to 4 and 5D. So if this was too much information for you that seemed a little crazy, maybe go and look at the interpretation that I did starting in 2017 or 18 in this reality. They've changed that. And I started in like 2017, and now they say I started in 2019 or something. So just go back in the archives. It's no longer on YouTube because they deleted me when they deplatformed me 3 years ago. So they deleted like 500 episodes of the Orion Rising podcast. And if you're listening on an MP3 broadcast, there's only about 160 or whatever that is that's up on the MP3 broadcast. So you would have to go to Facebook. It's the only place where they currently exist, the older episodes. So if you go to Facebook and go to Orion Rising, the page, not the group, but I own the group as well, but the page, Orion Rising, the page, and then go to videos and then scroll backwards. You'll see every video that I've ever filmed on and broadcast on Orion Rising is there. That's not all of my broadcasts because I broadcast on other avenues where I didn't broadcast on there, including Ancient Aliens Worldwide, which I own and created, and I've broadcasted on there as well. But all of the Law of One are in the archives there. You can go back and listen to the beginning of the Law of One and hear a very low third dimensional pulling you slightly into fourth dimensional description of the Law of One, and then a very high vibrational one that we just finished. So thank you, Christy. I love you guys too. So you were 32. I thought you were younger. You looked young, Bo. You still do. I didn't think you were in your 40s now. I thought maybe you were 32 now, and so you're almost 41 now in August. Happy birthday early, right? But you look young. That's why I thought that. So I love you guys. I'm done with the Law of One, but we'll move on. I'll probably start with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and move forward with that because that plays right into the chakras and the balancing of that. And I can show you guys that information because I'm writing about that currently in my next book, which will be out probably next year or the year after. So it would be good to go through that and have people hear that and then me write about it because I'm doing that comparative in the theological ideology of the religion itself. But coming from, instead of the standpoint of religion, the way they do it with most theologians, they just look at the religious fervor or fervor. They look at the religious semantics, and they don't look at the origin or the message of the spirituality in religions. And I'm doing a comparative in the spirituality of these so-called religions and what they were supposed to be about. And that's becoming something that more and more people are starting to look at because that's the true path. That's the true way that everybody's been talking about. So I think we'll do the Emerald Tablets. We'll start with that, but we're going to do the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I will be moving through all of those things. And I might, instead of focusing on one constantly, I might go one, like the first week of the month will be one subject. The second will be a different subject. The third will be a different subject. We'll see how I'm going to play around with that and see how that is. But tune in next week. We won't be talking about the Law of One. We'll be talking about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and I'll be starting that next week, and we'll run with that and start showing people and talk about what that spiritually was telling you. There's a lot there to unpack. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth are quite possibly the oldest scrolls that we have on the earth currently. I say that with a grain of salt because I do know that the Colburn Bible has scrolls that are 77,000 years old in there. We may cover the first part of the Colburn Bible as well, and maybe the second part of it. But the first part are scrolls that came out of Egypt with the Exodus of Moses, and those scrolls were very old, and the Egyptians said that they came from a time before this time that might have been 77,000 years ago. So we will be covering that information at some point as well. There's my Brooke. There's my beautiful woman. She's out looking around at houses over there, trying to find us a place. I love you. I'm going to get off here right now, and then I'm going to get my mom bathed and get dinner. So Brooke, I'll be able to do some walkthroughs with you, at least virtually, soon. Okay. I love you. All right, guys. This has been the Law of One. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. I'll see you guys next week when we start breaking down the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And then we'll move forward into, like I said, the Dead Sea Scrolls and many other things that we're going to start showing the world just exactly what they were actually talking about. And I'm not the only person in the world that is starting to realize this and interpret these things this way. Many people are starting to realize these messages have been locked up until this time in our history. And we'll get through that pretty quickly because we need to be, by the year 2027, on to the Book of Truth. I'll explain that in another episode. I love you guys. Have a great night. Thank you so much for those of you who tuned in and followed me through these years of doing the Law of One. Hopefully you guys have learned stuff. I'm not done with working with you, so don't worry about that. Like, we're in the Law of One class chat over there on Messenger. We're going to leave that and still use that the same way we do. We may rename the chat to something else to keep everybody, in there, and maybe expand the chat. So we'll discuss and let everybody that's in the chat decide what they think they want to do with the name of that chat. And we'll come up with a different name that might be a cool name that we might want to stick with. So we'll vote on it with everybody that's in there and see who wants to call it what. If we want to keep that chat and continue talking to one another, or create a new chat, whatever you guys want to do, we can do that. I just wanted to give an outlet for people to talk spiritually as a small community. And we can do the same thing with making groups on Facebook, whatever you guys want to do to continue. But I want to have an outlet so people can ask questions of what we're talking about, not just on the live show, but when they have questions as to spiritual practices and things. So I want to keep that community open. We have a nice knit group that's there, and I would hate to see that go away just because I stopped talking about the Law of One on my podcast, because that thing is transcending the Law of One than what's going on here. And I think everybody that's in there isn't ready to just go, okay, goodbye. So we're not going to do that. I love you guys. I'll see you guys later. I have to go and get my mom in the shower, and then I have a wife that's waiting for me to take a look at a few things online over in Australia. I love you guys. Have a great night. I'll see you guys either in the chat or next week. Hopefully, I don't know when I'll be back doing the Zooms on Wednesday. I'm taking care of a lot here with my mom and stuff. And Penny, thank you for letting them know that on Wednesday when Rick was asking, are we going to do that? I'm going to try and be a little more present if I can in the group to talk to you guys and answer questions. But with everything that I got going on right now, trying to wrap up my mom's household and get my mom placed in a home and wrap up my life in America and move to Australia, that it's kind of taxing. So I may not be able to do what I was, but in the end, in the next few months, once I get established over in Australia, you'll find that I'll have a lot more time on my hands because I won't be taking care of my mom all day long, to be able to do a lot more and start doing the things that I've been wanting to do for the last 5 or 6 years that I haven't been able to do. So we'll be able to move forward, at least I will, in helping more full time. And there's a lot of endeavors that Brooke and I are already talking about for her and I to be doing together over there and then moving forward, hopefully trying to help continue helping everybody the way that we do online now around the world. Okay, guys, I love you guys. This has been an experience. It's been fun. I even talked about doing the law of one from a higher perspective one more time, but I think I'm done with that. We're going to move on to other aspects and avenues now and start showing people how all these other religions and ways of spiritual practice tie into the truth of what's going on here. And this book right here is one of those that you guys can look at. Oh, there. I wanted that you can look at. The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways, explains a lot about that. It's sort of an introduction to the concept of what I'm talking about with going through all of these different spiritual practices and showing you how they're actually all the same. The only thing that changed is the semantical things that people at a certain place changed for the region that they lived in and the gods that they were worshiping at the time. Otherwise, the spiritual practice is identical. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great night. I'll either see you in the chat or I'll see you back on next Friday for the not the law of one, for the Orion Rising's beginning of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. We'll see how long that takes us. Probably won't take us as long because there's only 13 books to cover in the Emerald Tablets. So there'll be a lot of discussion because there's a lot to unpack, but I don't think it'll take us 2 years and 10 months to get through. I love you guys. It's been a great experience. I'll see you guys on the flip side. This is Orion Rising next week, Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I love you. Have a great night.